Chapter 1787. Oh, is that so? Cola Duckwings was shocked when he heard the news about Depuquin roast duck. Although Cola Duckwings thought that Wang Yu was fishing for fame, Wang Yu's kill of duck blood tofu was the real deal. To be able to kill the opponent despite being outclassed by the opponent's equipment, level, skills, and even class, it was clear that Feng's strength was extraordinary. Even if he was fishing for fame, it was more than enough to deal with ordinary players. Although Cola Duckwings was slightly stronger than duck blood tofu, it was only slightly stronger. Since Wang Yu could kill duck blood tofu so easily, killing Cola Duckwings would not be too difficult. However, Cola Duckwings did not panic. The surprise on his face was fleeting, and he quickly regained his composure. Although Cola Duckwings was not very smart, he knew what he wanted. If he could not defeat Wang Yu, then so be it. His target was not Wang Yu, but the head sent by Depuquin roast duck. Come at me. Cola Duckwings smiled and sent a message to Depuquin roast duck. Ignore him. Just rush to the tower. As a professional point giver, Cola Duckwings and the others were very professional. Against an expert like Wang Yu, they naturally had a strategy. In the battlefield setting, as long as a player received damage from the opposing player and did not leave the battle, the head of the player killed by the tower would belong to the opposing player. In other words, Cola Duckwings did not need to specifically kill Depuquin roast duck. As long as he randomly attacked Depuquin roast duck and then sent him to the tower, the experience and money would belong to Cola Duckwings. Cola Duckwings did not believe that no matter how strong Wang Yu was, he could not stop Depuquin roast duck from sending himself to the tower. When Pump Roasted Duck heard the news about the Cola Duckwings, he realized the Cola Duckwings strategy. Hence, he activated swift movement and ran in the direction of the Cola Duckwings. The middle lane was the center of the entire battlefield. The distance between the top lane and the middle lane was the same as the distance between the hot springs and the middle lane. Wang Yu had a passive skill, so his movement speed was slightly higher than Pump Roast Duck's. Although Pump Roast Duck had activated quickness, when Pump Roast Duck appeared in Cola Duckwings' field of vision, Wang Yu also appeared in the grass, not far away from Cola Duckwings. Cola Duckwings was a mage, so he had an absolute advantage in terms of attack range. Seeing that Roasted Duck Luck was within his attack range, Cola Duckwings raised his staff and threw a large fireball at the Roasted Duck Luck. Seeing this, Pump Roasted Duck couldn't wait to receive it with his face. Wang Yu, who was standing at the side, was not a fool. Of course, he knew what these two were trying to do. Just as the Cola Duckwings threw out the fireball, Wang Yu jumped between the D-Pump Roast Duck and the Cola Duckwings. Ah! With a shout, Wang Yu extended his left hand towards the Cola Duckwings and formed a claw with his fingers. Ferocious Tiger Strike. As a grab skill, Ferocious Tiger Strike had a much higher priority than Fireball. Bang! As Wang Yu bent his fingers, the fireball that was flying towards Pump Roast Duck swayed slightly, and Wang Yu caught it in his hand. Then, Wang Yu squeezed the fireball into a ball of sparks. Ferocious Tiger Strike wasn't a block skill. Although Wang Yu successfully crushed the fireball, Wang Yu lost 1/5 of his HP. Wang Yu's sudden appearance gave Cola Duckwings a fright. In a panic, Cola Duckwings slashed the ground with his staff, and a wall of fire appeared from left to right under Wang Yu and Pump Roast Duck's feet. Get over there. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu turned around and delivered a roundhouse kick to Pump Roast Duck's ear. Duong! With a thunderous sound, lightning flashed under Wang Yu's feet, and Pump Roast Duck was involuntarily pushed a few meters to the side by a powerful force. He crashed into the defensive tower in the middle lane. Boom! At the same time, a cannon sound rang out beside Pump Roast Duck's ears. A magic cannonball came crashing down. Hit me! Pump Roast Duck was shocked. As he ran towards Cola Duckwings, he shouted his classic line again. As a ranged class, Cola Duckwings was much better at dealing damage than a warrior. Hearing Pump Roast Duck shout, Cola Duckwings raised his staff and aimed it at Pump Roast Duck. But at that moment, a pair of large hands reached out from the side and grabbed Cola Duckwings' wrist like a pair of giant pincers. Then, with a forceful pull, Cola Duckwings' staff was dragged to the ground. In previous keyboard and mouse games, mages relied on the mouse to aim. In the holographic simulation game, Mages relied on the staff to aim. When a mage cast a spell, there would be a crosshair and the outline of the spell's trajectory. Kola Duckwing's staff naturally lost its direction after being grabbed by Wang Yu. It could only watch as Pump Roast Duck was killed by the defensive tower again. Kola Duckwings and Duck Blood Tofu had the same idea. Since they didn't get a kill, they couldn't just give up another one. The difference was that mages were much better at escaping than warriors. In a panic, Kola Duckwings pointed at the defensive tower with his left hand. Then, his body flashed, and he used the blink skill to teleport behind the defensive tower, successfully escaping from Wang Yu's entanglement. The pitch-black defensive tower was still very intimidating. Seeing that Kola's Duckwings had escaped, Wang Yu did not continue fighting. He turned around and leaped into the bushes. Pump Roast Duck was depressed after losing 2 consecutive kills in the top and middle lanes. After thinking about it again and again, he revived and ran towards the bottom lane without stopping. There were spicy duck pot and braised duck feet at the bottom lane. The jungler, Teach You to Be Duck, was also at the bottom lane. With 3 people at the bottom lane, he had to give up a kill no matter what. Chick, go to the jungle and pretend to be a jungler. Then, slowly approach the bottom lane. They're going to fight. Seeing Kola Duckwings rushing towards him, Wuji secretly gave an order to place one's pride. After receiving the order, to place one's pride took a few steps back and left Duck Blood Tofu's field of vision. Then, he ran toward the jungle. Wang Yu also started moving from the middle lane to the bottom lane. After being blocked by Wang Yu twice, Pump Roast Duck was already traumatized by Wang Yu. So, when he moved to the bottom lane, he kept an eye on Wang Yu. Seeing that Wang Yu was following him again, Pump Roast Duck's expression changed. He sent a message. That guy's at the bottom lane again. I think he has his eyes on me. Nonsense, Kola Duckwings said. You just realized it. What should we do? Pump Roast Duck said, if you can't get my kill now, I'm afraid that even if you have one more person, you won't be a match for them. Chapter 1788. If the Pumpkin Roast Duck kept giving away kills, the opponent's economy and level would have risen by now. However, after 2 waves of harassment from Wang Yu, Kola Duckwings and the others still had the 3-kill advantage from the start. Moreover, because of Wang Yu's harassment, Duck Blood Tofu at the top lane died once and lost 2 waves of minions. Wang Yu and the others had 1 less person to fight for the economy. To place one's pride alone occupied the 3 lanes of economy in the middle, top, and jungle. His current level and economy were almost the same as Duck Blood Tofu's. As for the bottom lane, Wuji and Inlao Air were still very stable. Although they did not deal damage, the 2 of them had a healer and a tank. In addition to their superior skills, the 2 at the bottom lane were slowly being overtaken even though they were 1 level ahead. In this way, the advantage between the 2 sides would become smaller and smaller. With 1 less person to share the economy and experience, it was only a matter of time before they were overtaken. Everyone had seen Wang Yu's strength. He had no problem taking on 2 players at once. If this continued, even if the Duck team was 5 against 4, they might not be a match for Quan Jun's team in the later stages. The Pumpkin Roast Duck could see the problem, so could Kola Duckwings. Hearing the Pumpkin Roast Duck's words, Kola Duckwings immediately asked the others cautiously, what level is the opponent now? Top lane Grandmaster of Combat level 3. Move out. Bottom lane Cleric and Shield Warrior level 2. Move out. When the others saw Kola Duckwings' message, they all reported the current stats of Chuanjin's team to Kola Duckwings. Okay. Seeing Chuanjin's message, Kola Duckwings nodded and said, let's go, everyone go to the bottom lane. As the leader of the Duck team, Kola Duckwings had a good grasp of the overall situation. Currently, Chuanjin's team was slowly closing the gap between the 2 sides. The Duck team's advantage was getting smaller and smaller. Rather than miss a good opportunity, it was better to make a decisive attack and use their current advantage to fight as a team to widen the gap again. At this moment, 4 out of the 5 members of the Duck team were level 3. Kola Duckwings, who was in the middle lane, had already reached level 4. Not only was Chuanjin down by 1 person, but to place one's pride was the only level 3 player. Wang Yu had not caught Kola Duckwings, so he was still level 2. To place one's pride, they were still wandering around the jungle. With 5 players who were level 3 and above and had superior equipment, it would be a piece of cake to capture 2 support players and a Grandmaster of Combat. Got it. After receiving the command from Cola Duck Wings, Duck Blood Tofu, and teach you how to cook duck in the jungle immediately went down to the bottom lane. At the same time, Pump Roast Duck also arrived at the first tower of the bottom lane, sending him off. When Wuji saw Pump Roast Duck, he didn't grit his teeth as Pump Roast Duck had expected. Instead, he greeted Pump Roast Duck warmly. Oomph. Pump Roast Duck rolled his eyes at Wuji. He stabbed a small soldier in front of Wuji and snatched a soldier. Before Duck Blood Tofu reached the bottom lane, Pump Roast Duck still had to attract Wang Yu's attention. Naturally, he had to minimize the benefits for Chuanjin. Snatching a soldier was worth a little experience. Seeing Pump Roast Duck snatch his soldier, Wuji wasn't angry. Instead, he smiled and stood to the side. Why? Do you think you can let them win like this? It's none of your business. Depikin Roasted Duck said fiercely, as long as you pay the membership fee, we will play this round well. Otherwise, just you wait. Our studio is very big. As long as you don't play with 5 people, don't even think about winning. Is that so? At this time, Wang Yu also arrived at the bottom lane. When he heard Pump Roast Duck's words, Wang Yu smiled and showed a disdainful expression. A dog with a broken spine, who only killed 3 people in 5 minutes, dares to bark here? Wang Yu had never seen such a shameless person. Shut up. Pump Roast Duck shivered when he heard Wang Yu's voice. He gave Wang Yu the middle finger, activated swift movement, and ran to the bottom of the tower. At that moment, Cola Duck Wings and I Teach You to Cook Duck were on standby at the bottom lane. Duck Blood Tofu had also arrived at the jungle at the bottom lane. The reason why Pump Roast Duck provoked Wang Yu was to lure Wang Yu into the encirclement of the opponents. The archer, Spicy Duck Pot, saw Pump Roast Duck rushing over and shot an arrow at Pump Roast Duck. Bam! Wang Yu's reflexes were extremely fast. As soon as Pump Duck ran forward, Wang Yu knew what the kid was going to do. So, he dashed behind Pump Duck and slapped the arrow from the Spicy Duck Pot aside with one hand. Go! Seeing Wang Yu rush over, Cola Duck Wings, who was hiding at the side, gave the others the order to attack. Bastard! Braised Duck Feet raised its shield and used taunt on Wang Yu. Under the forceful pull of taunt, Wang Yu was uncontrollably pulled to Braised Duck Feet's side. Attack Roast Duck first. The biggest troublemaker, Wang Yu, was controlled. Cola Duck Wings' biggest problem was solved. He pointed at Pump Roast Duck and gave the order to attack. Pump Roast Duck was one of them. He was going to die at the bottom of the tower anyway. He earned 300 yuan for each kill and 150 yuan for each assist. It would be a waste if he didn't take this opportunity. As he said that, he threw a flat A at the Pump Roast Duck with Cola Duck Wings. Seeing this, the Spicy Duck Pot also shot an arrow at the Depuquin Roast Duck. But at this moment, Ian Lauer rushed to Roasted Duck's side and raised his shield at the same time. Clang! Clang! Cola Duck Wings and Spicy Duck Pot's attacks were all blocked by Ian Lauer. He used his shield to cover Pump Roast Duck. While Wang Yu was still in a daze, she managed to get rid of the Braised Duck Feet's mockery. She took a step forward and arrived behind Ian Lauer. With a flying kick, she hit the Pumpkin Roast Duck's back. Lightning flashed. Wang Yu sent Pump Roast Duck to the bottom of the tower for the 3rd time. Bastard! The Mala Duck Pot raised its bow and was just about to turn around and shoot when Yin's second brother raised his middle finger at the Mala Duck Pot. The Mala Duck Pot's figure blurred, and Yin's second brother pulled it in front of him. Bang! Then, Ian Lauer smashed his shield down on Spicy Duck Pot's head. At this time, Ian Lauer hadn't learned Shield Bash yet, but an archer's head was still vulnerable to being smashed by a shield. The Spicy Duck Pot was stunned for a moment, and before it could react, a pair of big feet stomped down on its face. Duong! Spicy Duck Pot's head fell back, and the back of its head hit the shield. On the other hand, Wang Yu, who had stepped on the Spicy Duck Pot, leaped forward and knocked Cola Duck Wings, who was about to attack the German Pump Roast Duck again, to the ground. Duck Blood! It's all up to you. After being knocked down by Wang Yu, Cola Duck Wings shouted in the direction of the defense tower. At this time, Duck Blood Tofu lowered its head and rammed into Pump Roast Duck from behind the defense tower. Chapter 1789. Heat. Cola Duck Wings smiled when he saw the Duck Blood Tofu jump out from behind the tower. Although they didn't manage to kill any of Wang Yu's group, as long as they managed to get the head of Daquan Roast Duck, they wouldn't suffer any losses. Moreover, this was just the beginning. As long as Wang Yu was still with Daquan Roast Duck, they could continue to team up. Come back. Just when Cola Duck Wings thought to Pump Roast Duck's head was about to be taken away by the Duck Blood Tofu, an unfamiliar voice rang in everyone's ears. Hearing this unfamiliar voice, everyone instinctively looked in the direction of the voice and saw that a child had appeared behind the Duck Blood Tofu without anyone noticing. That child was none other than To Place One's Pride. To Place One's Pride shouted and reached out with both hands. To Place One's Pride grabbed the Duck Blood Tofu's lower ribs. To Place One's Pride yanked the Duck Blood Tofu backward. To Place One's Pride pulled the Duck Blood Tofu into his arms. F***CKU. Seeing this scene, the Pump Roast Duck was on the verge of tears. Are my teammates demons? Why is it so hard to deliver a head? To Place One's Pride took the Duck Blood Tofu away. Cola Duck Wings and Spicy Duck Pot were also suppressed. Naturally, no one could attack the Pump Roast Duck now. With tears streaming down his face, the Pump Roast Duck sent his head to the defense tower again. Don't let them escape. The Pump Roast Duck let out a desperate roar before he died. Wuji and To Place One's Pride left the battlefield. Only Wang Yu and Yin Lao Er remained in the encirclement. Yin Lao Er was a shield warrior with thick skin and a shield. Naturally, no one paid any attention to him. Teach You How to Cook Duck and Braised Duck Paw raised their weapons and smashed them at Wang Yu's back. Did you see that? He didn't know his position and didn't know his own ability. Was Wang Yu that easy to catch? At this moment, Wang Yu was pinning the Cola Duck Wing to the ground and hammering it. Although his back was facing the Teach You Duck duo, he could clearly sense their killing intent. Just as the duo was about to attack Wang Yu grabbed the Cola Duck Wing's collar with both hands and flipped to the left. With his back against the ground, he raised the Cola Duck Wing in front of him. I'll teach you to be a duck. The two of them hated Wang Yu so much that they used 120% of their strength. Duong. With a loud bang, Braised Duck Feet's shield smashed into the back of Cola Duck Wing's head. Cola Duck Wing's back straightened from the impact, and he felt dizzy. Pooh! At the same time, the dagger that Teach You to be Duck stabbed deeply into the back of the Cola Duck Wing. Cola Duck Wings, who had been hammered half to death by Wang Yu, was attacked by his companion. He didn't even get a chance to groan before he died on the spot. System notification. Iron Ox killed Cola Duck Wings. After the attack, one's movements would become stiff. Without waiting for the two to retract their weapons, Wang Yu twisted her waist and turned around. She pressed both of her hands against the ground and spun her legs into the air. She then kicked the two of them in the chin with lightning in her hands. Bang! Bang! Teach You to be Duck and Braised Duck Feet were sent flying by Wang Yu's kick. Second bro, hit me. At this time, Wang Yu had already flipped over and stood up. He stretched out his hands and pressed them against the two's faces. At the same time, he gave instructions to Yin Lao Er. After receiving Wang Yu's order, Yin Lao Er didn't even think. He pushed the Spicy Duck Pot with his shield and charged at Wang Yu. Wang Yu leaped up and used Collapsing Fist. He pushed the Spicy Duck Pot and Braised Duck Feet forward. Duong! With a loud sound, the two huge heads were smashed by Wang Yu onto the Spicy Duck Pot's head on Yin Lao Er's shield. After a wave of battle, the Spicy Duck Pot and the Spicy Duck Pot didn't even have half of their HP left. Now that they were simultaneously attacked by Wang Yu and Yin Lao Er, their fates were obvious. The pitiful Spicy Duck Pot, a brittle archer, and the Spicy Duck Pot, a brittle assassin, died on the spot. The HP bar on Braised Duck Feet's head also turned red. Seeing that his teammates were all dead, Braised Duck Feet was scared out of his wits. He turned around and ran down the tower without thinking. Wuji gave Wang Yu a look, and Wang Yu chased after him. He punched Braised Duck Feet under the turret and killed him. Then, he turned around and ran back. After taking a shot from the turret, Wang Yu's HP dropped by half. Another magic cannonball had already been fired, and it chased after Wang Yu's head. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to attack with the turret, Wu Ji raised his staff and cast a healing spell. Boom! As the cannonball hit Wang Yu's back, the HP bar on Wang Yu's head jumped, and he blocked the second attack from the turret. At the same time, Wang Yu jumped out of the turret's attack range, and the HP bar on his head was only in single digits. That was close. Seeing his HP, Wang Yu wiped the sweat off his forehead. Wu Ji said calmly, "Don't worry, I won't die. Everything is under control." To place one's pride was quite strong. Not only was his physical reaction at its peak at such a young age, he also had the personal guidance of Wang Yu and evildoers run wild. To place one's pride was no match for him. On the turret, Wang Yu and the other two killed Cola Duck Wings and the other three. To place one's pride also successfully killed Duck Blood Tofu on the other side of the turret. In less than 10 seconds, Cola Duck Wings and the others had reunited in the Dark Faction's hot spring. The five of them looked at each other. There were thousands of words that they wanted to say, but they didn't need to say it. In just one round of battle, this group of people understood the difference between them and Xuanzhen's group. Under the suppression of levels and equipment, the five of them suffered 0 damage from the four of them. The difference between them was self-evident. Wang Yu's performance, in particular, made Cola Duck Wings and the others deeply understand that in the face of absolute strength, all schemes and schemes were useless. If they continued to fight, they would only hand over points to their opponents. Retreat. After being stunned for a moment, Cola Duck Wings decided to forcefully retreat. The others also followed suit and forcefully left the game. Forcefully leaving the game would result in a decrease of their points, but it would also allow them to end the game early. Moreover, the other side would not receive any additional points as a reward. It was a method of harming others without benefiting oneself. Normal players would definitely not do such a thing. Duck Wings originally sold points for a living. Now, their goal was to disgust Wang Yu and the others. Naturally, they would not care about how many points they had. Cola Duck Wings has left the game. Duck Blood Tofu has left the game. All opposing players had left the game. Game over. After a series of system notifications, the game over appeared above Wang Yu and the others' heads. Then, they were teleported out of the arena with a dumbfounded look on their faces. In this match, Wang Yu killed 5 people, and a place one's pride killed 1 person. There was no tower push, so there was no additional reward for winning. Final score. Wang Yu received 5 points. To place one's pride received 1 point, and the others received 0 points. F***CK. Chapter 1790. Wu Ji finally realized that this damn battlefield of gods and demons was a scam. After spending so much effort in a match, they could only get 6 points in the end. How the F***CK could they continue playing? Even Wang Yu, who was very interested in this new gameplay, was depressed when he saw this pitiful point reward. I'm not playing anymore. I'm not playing anymore. To place one's pride, this young man waved his hand and said, "Isn't this AF**king waste of time? If we grind like this, we'll grind until the day the server shuts down. Isn't that so?" Wu Ji also said, "Now that we've offended that group of studios that sell points, we're definitely on their blacklist. It's fine if we get cheated once, but if we get cheated again and again, it'll really be a waste of time for us to continue playing." What Wu Ji said was very reasonable. Those studios that sell points did not care about how many points they had. If they forcefully quit the game when they saw Xuanzhen's group, it was likely that Xuanzhen's group would not be able to get a single point even if they farmed for a whole day. It had to be said that in the current situation, the studios had already occupied the main structure of the battlefield. These bastards had been wandering on the edge of the rules. With the rules of the system, no matter how strong Wang Yu and the others were, they could not do anything to them. Then what should we do? Wang Yu said gloomily. Are we just going to let it go? Are we not going to farm points? Everyone came to the battlefield to farm materials for Yin Lao Air. If they could not farm points, how are they going to exchange for materials? Of course not. Wu Ji touched his chin and said, "Since the small battlefield of 5v5 is not suitable for us. Let's fight on the big battlefield. Big battlefield? Hearing Wuji said, the others were stunned. That's right, Wuji said. It's the big battlefield. Wang Yu glanced at the battlefield settings and said, the minimum requirement for the big battlefield is 1,000 people. Where are we going to find so many people? Isn't there a guild mode? Wuji pointed to the last battlefield mode and said, this requires a minimum of 10 people, and in this mode, there will be no situation like the previous round. Indeed, in the guild mode battlefield, everyone was guild against guild, and both sides were on the same side. Naturally, there wouldn't be a situation where they would send themselves to their deaths. Makes sense. Wang Yu touched his chin and said, isn't it faster to earn points this way? Of course. Wuji nodded and said, guilds nowadays are basically formed with 500 players. Guilds that dare to fight in the battlefield mode are formed with more than 1,000 players. We can get at least 1,000 points in a single match. All right. Hearing Wuji's words, Wang Yu said excitedly, this is the guild mode. This is what it means to farm points. That no good, boss Wuji. Hearing the conversation between Wang Yu and Wuji, Yinlao Air was about to sweat. He couldn't help but remind them, our Qiwanjin only has 12 people who can fight. Well, what are these two lawless guys thinking? 10 people against a few hundred people, and they still look confident. Fortunately, there were no outsiders here, or else people would think that they were crazy. As for Wang Yu's strength and Wuji's tactics, Yinlao Air didn't doubt them. However, the guild mode battlefield wasn't as simple as it seemed. If it was a guerrilla warfare, with Wuji's superb commanding ability, 12 people could easily kill a few hundred people. Although the map of the guild mode was large, in order to prevent those hide-and-seek players from taking advantage of the situation, the map would shrink every once in a while. This way, Wuji's flexible tactics would be greatly limited. By that time, 12 people would be at a disadvantage against hundreds or thousands of people. Hee, that's not a problem. In response to Yinlao Air's worries, Wuji smiled and said, the more people there are, the bigger the target. We won't necessarily benefit from more people. We have nothing to lose, after all. The guild mode setting was that every person killed would be awarded 1 point, and the winning side's points would be doubled. The difference was that the losing side's points would be halved. For example, in a battle between 2,000-man guilds, the winning side would kill 1,000 people, and the losing side would kill 800 people. In that case, the winning side would obtain a total of 2,000 points, and the losing side would only obtain 400 points. Therefore, the more people there were, the more kills there would be. Qiwanjin had a total of 11 people. Even if all of them died, they would at most give away 22 points. Similarly, as long as Qiwanjin killed 44 people, this wave wouldn't be considered a loss. It was just 44 people. This was not difficult for Qiwanjin. Moreover, with a master strategist like Wuji, a ruthless person like Wang Yu, and a group of experts from Qiwanjin, it was still unknown who would win and who would lose. Yinlao Air was a smart person. With just one sentence from Wuji, Yinlao Air's worries disappeared like smoke. Forget it. Let's just do it. After confirming that they were going to fight in the guild mode's battlefield, Wuji casually sent a message to the others. Everyone, hurry up and come to the battlefield. I've already gotten a room. Very soon, the people from Qiwanjin sent a message. The content of the message was almost the same. Battlefield? What's that? How do we enter? Wuji first briefly explained what a battlefield was. Then, he told everyone that he didn't know how to enter the battlefield either. He would look around the arena in the city, and there would be an entrance. Although the entrance to the battlefield in every main city was different, it was quite close to the arena. It didn't take long for Qiwanjin to find the entrance to the battlefield. Then, following Wuji's instructions, they arrived at the room where Wang Yu and the others were. Didn't you guys go to the auction house? As soon as they entered the battlefield room, Mingdu started yelling. Why did you suddenly think of playing the battlefield? Of course, isn't this kind of meaningless PvP a waste of time? This was Mingdu's way of thinking. PvP was a waste of time if it wasn't for the sake of snatching the boss. Why are we going to the auction house? Wang Yu asked in return. To buy materials. Mingdu said, "That's why we came to the battlefield." Wang Yu pointed at the exchange option on the wall and said, "Second eldest materials can only be exchanged with battlefield points." "That's a scam?" Mingdo opened the exchange option with a face full of doubt. When he saw the items in the exchange column, his eyes lit up and he immediately shouted, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's get started." F*CK, Old Lee. "That's not what you said when we came just now." Seeing that Mingdu was so unprincipled, Chun Xiang and the others opened the exchange option as well. Then, everyone fell silent. Clearly, the items that could be exchanged with battlefield points were of the highest quality. Not only were there materials that Yin Lao Air needed, but there were also items that everyone else desired. For example, the Thunder Elemental Stone and the Viper's Venom Gland were two rare materials that Mingdu and Chun Xiang needed to raise their Thunder attribute and create poisons. Chapter 1791. These guys from Chuanjin were all cunning. If he wanted them to work hard, he had to show them the benefits. After being in Chuanjin for so long, Wang Yu naturally knew these people's temperament. If they didn't see the use of the points, although this group of people wouldn't use them to deal with official business, they definitely wouldn't use their trump cards. Now that they saw that the points could be exchanged for so many necessities, they would naturally be extremely excited and go all out. There was no need for Wang Yu to say anything. These people would also risk their lives. Seeing that everyone was in high spirits, Wuji didn't dare to offend them. He smiled and opened the guild battle mode. Immediately, everyone entered the matchmaking interface. Compared to party battles, the guild battle mode was much slower. After all, everyone was very busy. No guild would be as bored as these guys from Chuanjin. Even if there was, it would be a small guild that was not much bigger than Chuanjin. They knew their own strength and would definitely not come to the battlefield to humiliate themselves. After waiting for a whole minute, a guild name finally appeared on the matching interface. Guild name: Duck Prophet of Spring River Warm Guild Members. 974, do you want to fight? Tisk, TSK, Tisk. Looking at the guild information on the public screen, everyone could not help but sigh. Guild players did not have much freedom. The bigger the guild, the more difficult it was. Therefore, it was impossible for large guilds with thousands of players to come to the battlefield. Moreover, the guild battle mode was different from Demonic Canyon. In order to prevent small guilds from not having a good gaming experience, the guild battle mode was based on the overall strength of the guild. Now that they were matched with a guild with thousands of players, it was clear that there were not many guilds like Chuanjin who would ignore their duties and come to the battlefield. Even a matching mechanism was messed up. While everyone was lost in thought, a peculiar expression appeared on famous Sword Daoshue's face when he saw the guild's name on the public screen. "What's wrong?" Wuji saw this and asked, "Do you know someone from his guild?" Mingjian Daoshue was Chuanjin's favorite person on the forum. He had seen all kinds of people. Every time he showed this expression, it was definitely when he met someone or a guild he knew. "I don't know him." Mingjian Daoshue shook his head and said, "But I've heard of it. This studio is quite famous in the circle." Famous Sword Daoshue could also be considered half a professional gamer. The circle he was talking about was definitely the Professional Gamers Workshop circle. Studio. Chun Xiang touched his chin and said, "Why haven't I heard of it?" In Chuanjin, other than Mingjian Daoshue, Chun Xiang had the most contact with the studio. However, Chun Xiang was completely clueless about this guild. He had no impression of it at all. "It's normal that you haven't heard of it." Mingjian Daoshue smiled and said, "Not only are you unable to come into contact with them, none of us can come into contact with them." "Why?" Chun Xiang asked in confusion. "Do you play in the arena?" Famous Sword glanced at Spring Grace and said, "These guys are professional actors. They control the arena's high tiers all year round, and their customers are all players from the big guilds. So that's what they do." Hearing Mingjian Daoshue's words, Chun Xiang came to a sudden realization and revealed a disdainful expression. The arena's high tiers were a threshold, and normal players definitely wouldn't be able to reach them. The players from the big guild's time was more precious, and of course they wouldn't have so much energy to spend on the arena. So, if they could spend money to settle things, they definitely wouldn't waste time. Blood Alliance had previously found Wang Yu to help them level up. These big guilds were all people who cared about their face. So of course they wouldn't openly announce that they had paid for travel fees in order to quickly level up. So, although the experts all knew that there was such an actor profession, if one didn't come into contact with a studio circle, they wouldn't know who was doing such a thing. However, towards this profession, everyone looked down on it. This profession couldn't provide any benefits to normal players, and instead directly affected the player's gaming experience. In the gaming world, actors had always been known as the cancer of esports. Similarly, the players from the studios all looked down on this profession. Even Xuanzhen's group of wretched fellows scoffed at this. Don't look down on them. Seeing Chun Xiang's expression, Mingjian Daoxue reminded, the things they do are despicable, but their strength isn't weak at all. Everyone, don't underestimate them. Mingjian Daoxue's words weren't groundless. These fellows were the threshold of the arena, and their strength was defined as below professional players and above normal players. Their strength wasn't weak, and some of the more outstanding ones could even fight on par with professional players. Of course, that was only in the context of the arena. It was normal for 8 to 10 people to be strong, but if nearly 1,000 people were all at this level, then it would be a bit ridiculous. Rebirth was a game that had a very strict definition of experts. It's okay. Wuji heard this and smiled. The arena is about teamwork. The more people they have, the better it is for us. As he said this, Wuji pressed confirm. The scene changed, and the people from Xuanzhen were transported to an airship. Directly below the airship was the battlefield. The guild battlefield could accommodate up to tens of thousands of people, and the battlefield map was naturally much larger than the Demonic Gods Canyon. Looking down from the airship, the entire guild battlefield could be seen, but because the map was too big, everyone couldn't see it clearly and could only see the general area. From the coordinates, the area of the guild battlefield was not much smaller than the main cities in the game. Moreover, the battlefield had forests, mountains, cities, rivers, and other kinds of terrain. The guild battlefield had everything that a main city had. The only difference was that as a battlefield, this map was desolate and uninhabited, and it looked more like the ruins of a main city. According to the settings, the battlefield would shrink after a certain period of time, and if players didn't enter the safe area before the battlefield shrank, the system would automatically declare them dead. Therefore, after entering the battlefield, hiding and playing hide-and-seek would not work. They could only run while fighting until they were wiped out. Moreover, in the battlefield map, players' flying equipment and mounts could not be used. Apart from skills, everyone had to rely on their feet to run. However, when players entered the battlefield, the map would randomly spawn vehicles and mounts for players to use. In order to attract players to play the battlefield mode, there was no lack of rare mounts in the battlefield map, allowing players to have fun before dying. Chapter 1792. Tactics were all about the right time, the right place, and the right people. In terms of numbers, Chunjiang's duck prophet had the absolute advantage, so a direct confrontation was not going to work. However, Wuji had mentioned from the beginning that it was not necessarily a bad thing for the other party to have more people. In fact, the more people there were, the more advantageous it would be for Xuanzhen. After all, the more people there were, the bigger the target would be. Moreover, the discipline and unity would be a lot weaker. Players were just game geeks, not generals who led troops to war. It was already very impressive for them to be able to command thousands of people to advance and retreat in an orderly manner. It was not realistic for them to be able to command people like they were their own arms. In comparison, the 10 or so Xuanzhen members worked together much better. Xuanzhen's flexible guerrilla tactics were more practical in this kind of situation. However, guerrilla tactics were still very demanding of the commander, especially the control of the terrain. Wuji had a photographic memory. The airship flew over the battlefield. Wuji's eyes were like a scanner, scanning the entire map into his brain. Then, he began to analyze the strategy. After playing the game with Wuji for so long, the Xuanzhen members naturally knew what Wuji was doing. Seeing that Wuji was doing something serious, the noisy guys did not even dare to breathe loudly. They all quietly stood behind Wuji, not making a sound. Let's go. After a while, Wuji waved his hand at everyone and said, "Let's go down. Where should we jump?" Chun Xiang asked cautiously from the side. "Here." Wuji casually marked the battlefield map. "Here?" Chun Xiang looked down at the coordinates that Wuji had marked. He could not help but wonder, what's the point of this place? The start of the battle mode was very important. As long as one could control the key points, it was not a problem for one man to hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. However, other than the path that Wuji had marked, there was nothing special about it. Chun Xiang thought that he would be better than Wuji. "There's no point. I'll just randomly mark along this path," Wuji said. Chun Xiang was speechless. "Why not mark here or here?" Chun Xiang pointed on the map 3 times. "Because I'm the commander-in-chief." Wuji smiled and took the lead to jump off the airship. He unfolded the glider and flew to the marked location. Although Chun Xiang was unhappy with Wuji's attitude, everyone knew that Wuji was such a coward. His tactics would even harm his own people. Of course, he would not explain it to anyone. Since Wuji had marked it this way, he must have his reasons. Although he was unhappy, Chun Xiang still jumped down after Wuji, and the others followed closely behind. While Wuji was researching his strategy, on the other side of the airship, Spring River warmed up Prophet. From now on, the guild's name was too long, and it was inconvenient to fight. Also, there was the suspicion of the number of words water. The players of Spring River warmed up Prophet were also in shock. No way. How can a guild with 11 players be so sure? It was obvious that the players of Spring River warmed up Prophet were very surprised by Qiuanjin and the others' choice to enter the battlefield. Logically speaking, with such a huge difference in strength, the other side should have been matched up again. However, Qiuanjin chose the most impossible answer. They did not know whether these people were brave or a bunch of idiots. Actually, logically speaking, the players of Spring River warmed up Prophet were also very opposed to Qiuanjin's suicidal behavior. They had close to 1,000 people on their side, but the other side only had a dozen or so. Not only would it be dishonorable to win, but the 11 points were also not enough. It was a complete waste of time. Qiuanjin? These unscrupulous fellows do have some reputation. Just as everyone was in shock, the boss of Spring River warmed up Prophet, Fei Tianda, could not help but raise his eyebrows when he saw the name Qiuanjin. Having been in the gaming circle for so long, Fei Tianda had naturally heard of this group of roving bandits. Especially after the motley crew under Qiuanjin took over the Professional League Management Bureau, Qiuanjin's name became even more famous. Although there were people who questioned it later, Qiuanjin's reputation was now known by everyone. Just a dozen or so people fighting against close to 1,000 people was really out of Fei Tianda's expectations. Fei Tianda could not help but become serious. "Boss, you know these people?" Seeing Fei Tianda's serious expression, a fatty called Scrooge McDuck beside Fei Tianda asked in confusion. "Yes." Fei Tianda nodded and said, "You know about the motley crew, right? It's the team under Qiuanjin." "I know." Scrooge McDuck heard this and said, "Isn't it the team that won the national championship through a rigged match?" "Who doesn't know?" "Rigged match?" Fei Tianda laughed and said, "I don't know if it's true or not, but these guys from Qiuanjin are quite good at stirring up trouble. I'm afraid we will be tricked by them." "Is it that exaggerated?" Scrooge McDuck said in surprise. "With just a dozen or so people. In a head-on battle, a dozen or so people naturally won't be able to do much." Fei Tianda said calmly, "I'm just afraid that they will play rogue with us." "Play rogue?" "That's right." Fei Tianda said, "They have fewer people, but we have more people. As long as they occupy an advantageous position, they can casually kill a dozen or so of us. Even if they lose, they will be able to recoup their losses. If we play with them, we will obviously be at a disadvantage." It had to be said that Fei Tianda's eyes were very sharp to be able to make a living in the studio. He actually saw through the thoughts of these guys from Qiuanjin with just a glance. "Then what should we do?" Scrooge McDuck thought about Fei Tianda's words and asked with a frown. "Of course we have to eliminate them from the route." Fei Tianda turned his head and looked at the map and said, "Later, we will split into 3 groups. We must occupy these 3 positions. As he said this, Fei Tianda marked 3 positions on the map. If Chun Xiang was here, he would definitely be very surprised. This was because the positions that Fei Tianda marked were exactly the same as the positions that Chun Xiang had marked previously. They were at the city ruins, the high ground at the top of the mountain, and the forest area. Fei Tianda might only be a gaming geek, but he knew the use of the terrain after playing many team battles. There were many houses and bunkers in the city ruins, making it the best place for urban warfare. The high ground at the top of the mountain had a wide field of view, and it was used to defend a stronghold. The only supply in the game was potions. As long as there were enough potions, a few people would be able to defend the stronghold. The visibility in the forest area was low, making it suitable for ambushes and roaming in the field. A small and nimble team, like Chuanjin, would definitely have a huge advantage here. These 3 positions were easy to defend and hard to attack. As long as Chuanjin attacked any one of them, they could rely on the terrain and become a difficult bone to chew. Chapter 1793. Following Fei Tianda's command, the players from Spring River Warm River disembarked from the airship. They split into 3 groups and flew towards the 3 locations that Fei Tianda had marked out. Chuanjin and the others had already landed on the ground. They were hiding in the bushes and observing the enemy's movements. The Spring River Heating players descended from the sky, attracting the attention of Chuanjin's members. It had to be said that the sight of nearly 1,000 gliders unfolding in the air was rather spectacular. Looking from below, it was like a dark mass of dark clouds. The atmosphere was extremely frightening. Quantitative change led to qualitative change. When there was a sufficient number of gliders, no matter what they did, it would be shocking. Damn, they are. Seeing the Spring River Heating players split into 3 groups and fly in 3 different directions, Chun Xiang was slightly stunned. A trace of fear flashed in his eyes. He immediately turned to look at Wu Ji, not knowing what to say. With Chun Xiang's intelligence, it was naturally not difficult for him to figure out where the Spring River Heating players were headed. Fortunately, Wu Ji did not listen to him. Otherwise, Chuanjin would have been sent down from the sky. Hee. Faced with Chun Xiang's astonished gaze, Wu Ji smiled faintly and said, "The other party is not an NPC. If you can think of something, how can others not think of it? Now that they have split up their forces, which team are we going to kill next?" Wang Yu asked solemnly as he shielded his eyes with his hand and looked at the Spring River Heating players in the sky. "Old cow, can we be more reserved?" Hearing Wang Yu's words, Chuanjin's members broke out in a cold sweat. Great, this guy's thinking is too bold. In his eyes, only 1,000 opponents are worthy of being taken seriously. Even if 300 to 400 people split up, they can still kill one team easily. Damn, 300 to 400 people are still people, all right? Can you not be so reckless? You are hurting their pride. Just wait patiently. Wu Ji waved his hand and said, "We can't use wings in this map. We are all normal people. If we charge him like this, we're basically seeking death." That's right. Wu Ji, this is what a human should say. Old cow, who do you think you are? Hearing Wu Ji's words, everyone pointed their middle fingers at Wang Yu. Spring River Warm Waters players weren't easy to deal with. Even if their individual levels weren't as high as Chuanjin's, they wouldn't be too far off. They might even be stronger than elite players from big guilds like Blood Alliance. Wang Yu was invincible. He had a full set of divine weapons and all sorts of displacement skills. Facing such an opponent, he would naturally be able to escape unscathed. However, the others were all normal people. How could they compare to a monster like Wang Yu? A dozen people facing 300 or 400 people head-on was no different from being descended from the heavens. It was meaningless for Wu Ji to avoid the main battlefield. Wait, don't tell me you plan to stay here forever? Wang Yu was also a little surprised. The guild battlefield would eventually shrink. Hiding here definitely wasn't a solution. If they didn't take advantage of the early stages of the battle to kill as many players as possible, the longer the battle progressed, the more difficult it would become. Hee. Wu Ji laughed again. No, they definitely won't stay here for long. They'll be here soon. How do you know? Seeing how Wuji said it so naturally, to place one's pride asked doubtfully. Wuji retorted, "If we had thousands of people, would you wait for them to come? You're amazing." To place one's pride thought about it, and gave Wuji a thumbs up in admiration. People's mentality would always change according to their environment. When they were strong, they would definitely chase after weaker opponents. Immediately after, Wuji said, "Everyone, take this chance to look for mounts nearby. If you can use them, ride them back. If you can't, kill them." Okay. After receiving Wuji's orders, everyone lowered their heads and quietly dispersed. Only Wang Yu was puzzled and asked, "Why are we looking for mounts?" "For running." Wuji smiled. "We'll have to run later when the circle shrinks." The mobility of a guerrilla fighter was key. Mounts were naturally indispensable. "All right," Wang Yu responded and left the gathering point. At the same time, the Spring River Warm players had all landed. After landing on the city ruins, Fei Tianda stood on the rooftop and looked down. Seeing that there were no signs of the Quanjin players, he anxiously asked in the guild channel, "We haven't found the target at Point C. What about the other two areas?" Very quickly, Scrooge McDuck, who led a group of people to land on the hilltop, replied, "No targets found at Point A. What about Point B? Old Tang?" Fei Tianda asked in the guild channel after seeing that there were no targets at Point A. After a while, the leader of the other group, Donald, also replied, "No targets found at Point B either." Fei Tianda could not help but be stunned when he saw the message from the two of them. He asked in bewilderment, "Nothing? Did you guys look around?" Scrooge McDuck was speechless. "Boss, we are on the hilltop. There's nothing around us. They can't hide. It's the same here." Donald followed up. "The forest here is not dense. We can see it with just a few hundred people. Did you not search your area?" This, Fei Tianda's face turned slightly red after being reminded by Donald. There was no better place to hide than houses. There were so many houses in the city ruins. It was possible that Xuanjin's group was hiding in one of them. Don't worry about these details. The people from the Quanjin sect are very cunning. It's very likely that they discovered our intentions when we landed. That's why they ran elsewhere. You guys should search around before coming to a conclusion. After giving instructions to Scrooge McDuck, Fei Tianda closed the message window and ordered the people around him. "Everyone, search the houses. Don't alert them if there are any suspicious targets. Send the coordinates first." Yes. At Fei Tianda's command, the players from Spring River Heater started searching the city ruins. While Fei Tianda and the others were doing a carpet search, Xuanjin's group returned from all directions on their mounts. In order to make the battlefield mode more attractive to players, the designers had put in a lot of effort, especially the mounts. The mounts that were rare in the game could be seen everywhere. It made up for the players who could only ride horses. Xuanjin's group went out for a stroll and came back with all sorts of mounts. Mingdu, in particular, brought back a dragon from God knows where. He was showing off. Starry Sky Dragon. Awesome, right? It's a legendary God-tier mount that increases speed by 360%. This group of people could even compare themselves to each other. Seeing how arrogant Mingdu was, the others curled their lips in disdain. Chapter 1794. Bulsh *T. To place one's pride pointed at his chicken-like mount with an unconvinced expression. My dancing fire beast is also a god-tier beast. Not only does it increase speed by 360%, it can also be used by two people. Aunt Meng, I'll sit with you later. To place one's pride did not forget to express goodwill to Exquisite Meng. Scram. Exquisite Meng's face darkened. Either call me Grandma Meng or Big Sister Meng. Aunt Meng, screw you. To place one's pride was embarrassed after being snubbed. He quickly pretended to look around to ease the tense atmosphere. However, at this moment, he saw Wang Yu walking over from afar, leading a few strange animals. Those monsters wore red and white pointed hats on their heads, and scarves that were similar in color to the hats were wrapped around their necks. Two horns protruded from their heads like tree branches, and their large eyes flickered. They looked quite cute. Behind these monsters was a sleigh. The sleigh was also decorated with colorful decorations, looking very childish. To place one's pride would definitely find it very cute if it was a beautiful girl leading these monsters. However, Wang Yu is an 8 feet tall man who killed people like scything flax, leading a bunch of cute animals. The contrast was somewhat irresistible. What's that? To place one's pride's eyes widened when he saw the animals Wang Yu was leading. The others saw to place one's pride's expression and hurriedly followed to place one's pride's gaze. When they saw the animals in Wang Yu's hands, they all revealed the same expression as to place one's pride. Ha ha ha! After a long time, the crowd burst into laughter. They pointed at Wang Yu and mocked, "Damn, old cow, your girl's heart is bursting." Wang Yu was confused by everyone's sudden mockery. He stood there in a daze, giving off a cute aura. "Why did you make this thing? What the hell is this?" Wu Ji asked, trying hard not to laugh. "I think it's a reindeer." Wang Yu rubbed his chin and sent out the mount's attributes. Christmas sleigh, mount, God tier, movement speed plus 360% seating capacity, 12 people. Requirements, advanced horsemanship. Seeing the attributes of Wang Yu's mount, everyone's mocking laughter came to an abrupt halt. They excitedly pointed at the adorable reindeer and exclaimed, "A mount for 10, 12 people." Mounts in Rebirth were usually single-player mounts. The higher the tier, the higher the movement speed bonus, and the higher the number of players riding it. For example, although the dancing fire-flowing flame beast was ugly, it was much more useful than the Star Dragon due to the fact that it was a 2-person mount that increased its movement speed by 360%. But Wang Yu actually brought back a 12-person mount. Was this kid destined to be the main character of the legends? Wu Ji looked at the attributes of the Christmas sleigh next to Wang Yu and immediately narrowed his eyes. "Looks like we'll have to change our strategy this time." Hearing Wu Ji's words, everyone was confused. "What do you mean, Wu Ji?" Hee. Wu Ji chuckled and said slowly, "I originally wanted to use the advantage of mobility to fight guerrilla warfare. Now we can save some energy." Wu Ji's words always made people confused. At this moment, it was even more confusing. "Let's go. Get on." Just when everyone was at a loss, Wu Ji lifted his leg and stepped onto the sleigh. Although the others did not know what Wu Ji was up to, this kid was used to being mysterious. Everyone also knew his personality. There was no need to ask, they just followed. Therefore, when Wu Ji got on, everyone else jumped on the sleigh. "Go!" At the front, Wu Ji pulled the reindeer's reins and shouted. The sleigh moved forward at an extremely fast speed. It was their first time riding such a high-end mount, so everyone was quite excited. But soon, everyone realized that something was wrong. That's not right. Chun Xiang, who was next to Wu Ji, looked at the direction the sleigh was moving in and said in fear, "Wu Ji, you're going in the wrong direction. You're going to face the opponent head-on." The direction Wu Ji was heading in was the direction where Spring River Worms players had landed. Hee. Wu Ji smiled and explained, "When we first entered the battlefield, it was head-on, but not now." "Why?" Chun Xiang asked with a frown. "Because they're looking for us all over the mountains and plains." Wu Ji smiled. War wasn't a group fight. You needed to use your brain. Strategy was naturally to attack the heart. Those who couldn't hold back and took the initiative to attack would definitely reveal an opening. Even though Wu Ji hadn't seen Fei Tianda's face before, from the moment he entered the battlefield, Wu Ji had already grasped Fei Tianda's mind. In the following battles, Spring 1 naturally had to follow the Quanzhen sect's lead by the nose. Chun Xiang's players landed in 3 different directions in order to surround Xuanzhen. It wasn't hard to see that Fei Tianda was a person who was eager for quick success. In order to win the battle, he split Chun Xiang into 3 smaller units. Although his forces were scattered, they still weren't something a dozen people could deal with. The reason why Wu Ji didn't immediately attack and instead went to look for a mount was because Wu Ji had seen through this point. He knew that after Fei Tianda landed and didn't find Xuanzhen, he would definitely order Chun Xiang's players to conduct a carpet search of Xuanzhen. At that time, Chun Xiang's forces would be completely scattered. Could a guild that had its strength divided still be called a guild? It was a group of small teams that didn't care about each other. At that moment, Chuanjin's players would found their mounts were far more mobile than Shunxiang's players. With their mobility advantage, it was basically a matter of time before they could take down these scattered teams. Of course, guerrilla warfare still required him to wander around the map in search of lone squads. It required a lot of effort to be able to appear and disappear without a hitch. However, now that he had the snow sled, everything became much easier. The speed of the snow sled went without saying. It didn't take long for Chuanjin's group to arrive at the outskirts of the mountainous terrain. Wuji stopped his sleigh far away. He took out his spectacles and put them on the bridge of his nose to take a look. He saw that the players from Spring River Heating Company had split up into dozens of small teams and were walking towards the foot of the mountain while looking around. Get off, get off! Wuji waved at Chuanjin's players and jumped off the snow sled. He rolled into the bushes at the side. Seeing this, the others followed closely behind and hid in the bushes. Old cow! After everyone hid, Wuji smiled evilly and pointed at the Chunxiang's players on the hillside. You go and be the bait. It shouldn't be a problem to lure them over, right? It's nothing. Chapter 1795. Looking at Wang Yu's back as he left, Wuji turned around and pointed in two other directions. He said to Baiming Youyu and Mingjian Daoxua, "You guys go over there and show them around. Wait for my orders later." The Spring River Heating Company players spread out. It seemed like their forces were scattered and could be easily defeated. However, it was unrealistic to nibble away at them bit by bit. After all, the Spring River Heating Company players were not fools. The number of players on the battlefield was displayed. If their companions disappeared in groups, it would definitely attract the attention of other players. When that happened, they would definitely gather together again. Therefore, cutting flesh with a blunt knife would not work here. They had to gather these people together and swallow them up before they could react. 300 people was too many. It was impossible to swallow them all in one bite. It would be easier to swallow them in 3 bites. Understood. After playing the game with Wuji for so long, Mingji and Daoxue and the others could naturally guess Wuji's intentions. The two of them moved and disappeared into thin air. On the hillside, Scrooge McDuck was holding a blade of grass in his mouth. He sat on a high place and ordered his subordinates to search the mountain. His face was filled with impatience. It was obvious that Scrooge McDuck had a lot of opinions about Fei Tianda's orders. Seeing that his subordinates had searched from the hillside to the foot of the hill and had not found a single person, Scrooge McDuck spat out the grass in his mouth and said unhappily, "Do you think boss is crazy? It's just dealing with a dozen people. Is there a need to make such a big fuss? Search the mountain, my ass. These guys are probably playing hide and seek somewhere." That's right. Beside Scrooge McDuck, a warrior with a large shield who was shouting Uncle Duck echoed, "If you ask me, I think we should gather together and wait for the map to shrink. Those B** stars can hide for a while, but they can't hide forever. Sooner or later, they will have to face us head on." "That's impossible," Scrooge McDuck said gloomily. "It's not like you don't know boss's temper. There's so many of us. Do you think he will wait for others to find us?" "That's true." Uncle Salted Duck sighed silently. Spring River Water Heating Company was a workshop guild, and Fei Tianda, the guild leader, was the boss. Disobeying the boss was equivalent to destroying one's own job, so one had no choice but to obey. Someone seems to be coming over there. Just as the two of them were feeling gloomy, Scrooge McDuck raised his head and saw a silhouette pass through the searchline. The silhouette was running up the slope from the foot of the mountain. The man was tall and muscular, dressed like a grandmaster of combat. It was Wang Yu, whom Wuji had sent as bait. Wang Yu was very aware that he was going to be the bait. He did not hide at all and swaggered up the mountain. But to Wang Yu's surprise, the players from Spring River Warm Water completely ignored him. However, when he thought about it, there was nothing wrong with it. Spring River Warm Waters Guild had close to 1,000 members. Although it wasn't to the extent that they didn't know each other, the majority of them were just familiar faces and knew each other's names. They weren't particularly familiar with each other, so they were used to seeing unfamiliar faces. If Wang Yu was sneaking up the mountain, the players from Spring River Warm Water Heating Company would definitely stop Wang Yu and interrogate him. However, when Wang Yu walked into the crowd so openly, the players treated Wang Yu as one of their own. Even Scrooge McDuck, who was on the slope, thought that Wang Yu was a player from his own guild. The reason why he rushed up the mountain was that he had something to say to the leader. So Scrooge McDuck stood up and called out to Wang Yu, "Over here, I'm over here." Actually, Wang Yu did not know who to look for. Wang Yu was puzzled that no one was paying attention to him. When he saw someone stand up and call him over, Wang Yu did not hesitate and ran towards Scrooge McDuck. Wang Yu's movement speed was so fast that he was not far away from Scrooge McDuck in the blink of an eye. "Huh, you are?" As Wang Yu got closer and closer, when he saw Wang Yu's class clearly, Scrooge McDuck suddenly felt that something was wrong. As a sewer class in Rebirth, Grandmasters of Combat were not very popular. As a commercial guild, Spring River Warm Water Heating Company was very cautious in recruiting members. That was why there were only a few Grandmasters of Combat in the guild. Scrooge McDuck knew all of them, but he had never seen such a muscular Grandmaster of Combat. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu was already less than 10 meters away from Scrooge McDuck and Uncle Salted Duck. At this distance, Wang Yu's appearance and attire were very clear. Scrooge McDuck frowned and lowered his head to take a glance at Wang Yu's chest. He saw a dazzling yin-yang fish hanging on Wang Yu's chest where the guild badge should be. Seeing the yin-yang fish, Scrooge McDuck felt his head buzzing. He pointed at Wang Yu in fear and said, "You are from Chuanjin?" "Yes." As soon as Scrooge McDuck finished speaking, Wang Yu had already rushed in front of Scrooge McDuck. After saying yes, Wang Yu took a step forward and pushed his right shoulder forward. After saying, "Ah," Wang Yu's shoulder slammed heavily into Scrooge McDuck's chest. Iron Mountain Backrest. A Grandmaster of Combat, level 30 skill. The damage was not very high, but it had a very strong knockback effect. Bang! Scrooge McDuck felt a huge force coming from his chest. He was sent flying by Wang Yu's shoulder. Scrooge McDuck was a magician, so his HP was not very high. Although Wang Yu's skill was mainly for crowd control, the HP bar above Scrooge McDuck's head dropped to the bottom. Without waiting for Scrooge McDuck to fall to the ground, Wang Yu leaped up and stepped on Scrooge McDuck's chest. Scrooge McDuck did not even have a chance to make a sound before he was crushed into a white light by Wang Yu's foot. Uncle Salted Duck's eyes widened when he saw this scene. Uncle Salted Duck did not expect this guy, who ran all the way here without anyone stopping him, to be the target of his Chuanjin team. Uncle Salted Duck did not know what had happened, but Scrooge McDuck was sent flying by Wang Yu's Iron Mountain Backrest. When Uncle Salted Duck realized what had happened, Scrooge McDuck had already been stomped to death by Wang Yu's foot. "I'm going to kill you." Uncle Salted Duck was a shield warrior who specialized in protecting his teammates. It was a great humiliation for a shield warrior to watch his teammate get stomped to death. In a rage, Uncle Salted Duck raised a shield and charged at Wang Yu's back. Wang Yu was not flustered at all. He stood firmly with both his legs and crossed his palms. Puff! Wang Yu's right arm ignited into a ball of raging flames. Chapter 1796. Flaming Blade. Epic skill activates inner strength to the limit to deal massive fire damage in an instant. Unstoppable. Kills targets whose level is higher than yours. MP cost. 30% cooldown. 60-second skill introduction. The martial god's most prideful palm technique. Using the palm as a blade, it attacks the target with internal energy. It is unstoppable and overbearing. Only martial arts experts who cultivate both internal and external energy can practice this technique. The special effect of the Flaming Blade skill was very simple. It wasn't even as flashy as the special effect of Oscillating Fist. However, this skill was a genuine epic skill. Wang Yu's skill set was magnificent, but he didn't have many active skills that were above epic level. Apart from Martial God's Kick and Toppling the Mountains, there was only Thunderstomp. These skills were extremely powerful. Not to mention insta-killing a player, they could even insta-kill a boss in a matter of minutes. One could only imagine the power of the Flaming Blade to be on par with these skills. Wang Yu's knife hand chopped down on Uncle Salted Duck's shield. A dazzling red light flashed, and Uncle Salted Duck and his shield were cut in half on the spot. Moreover, he didn't even make a sound. The sharpness of the flaming saber could be imagined. What's going on? The battle on the hillside caused quite a commotion, especially when Uncle Salted Duck roared. It attracted the attention of everyone at the foot of the hill. When everyone looked over, Uncle Salted Duck and Scrooge McDuck had both died in Wang Yu's hands. This time, there was an uproar. Mother of Asterisk Cur. Chuanjin's turtles are on the hillside. Don't let them escape. No one knew who shouted, but the Spring River Heating Company players, who were originally scattered at the foot of the hill, were like flies that had seen feces. All of them rushed toward Wang Yu's direction, trying to outdo each other. This was the effect that Wang Yu wanted. Seeing that the Spring River Heating Company players had noticed him, Wang Yu chuckled. He didn't retreat. Instead, he charged forward. In an instant, he was right in front of the Spring River Heating Company players. As a guild that relied on fighting in the arena for a living, the Spring River Heating Company players were very skilled in combat. Although Scrooge McDuck was killed by Wang Yu, these players didn't need to be commanded. They gathered together and formed a formation in front of Wang Yu. Wang Yu had been hunted down many times since he started playing the game. Being surrounded by hundreds of players was nothing to Wang Yu. Wang Yu activated Lightness skill and leaped into the air. He spread his arms and flew over the Spring River Heating Company players as if he was walking on flat ground. That's right, she could fly. Qinggong was similar to other classes' mounts. However, at the end of the day, it was still a player's skill. Hence, Wang Yu could use Qinggong in this map. After learning the lightning riding art, Wang Yu's Qinggong would allow her to hover in the air. Not to mention a defensive line of several hundred players. As long as she had enough Qinggong points, Wang Yu could traverse mountains and ravines with just a few words. Damn, there's such a thing. Lightness skills were extremely rare. Lightness skills like Wang Yu's that allowed him to fly in the air were even rarer. Ordinary players naturally wouldn't have seen such a shameless skill. Seeing Wang Yu fly over their heads, the Spring River Heating Company players were dumbfounded. Of course, Wang Yu was here to act as bait, not to show off his lightness skill. After passing by the Spring River Heating Company players, Wang Yu canceled his lightness skill and landed on the ground. He gave the Spring River Heating Company players the middle finger in ridicule before turning around and running down the mountain. The Spring River Heating Company players had been looking for Wang Yu and the others for a long time. They had been suppressing their resentment for a long time. Now that they were being ridiculed by Wang Yu, they naturally couldn't take it anymore. The players behind Wang Yu didn't say anything and immediately chased after them. At the same time, the space on both sides of the Spring River Heating Company players' formation distorted. North Sea Yoyu and Mingjian Daoxue also appeared. Come and catch me, idiot. If you catch me, I'll let you, Mingjian Daoxue had the style of a Chuanjin dog. His coquettish appearance made even North Sea Yoyu want to go over and give him a few kicks, let alone the Spring River Heating Company players. Originally, everyone was chasing after Wang Yu. Now that they were provoked by Mingjian Daoxue, the players closest to Mingjian Daoxue turned around and started chasing after him. North Sea Yoyu was a reserved person. Naturally, she couldn't do something as despicable as Mingjian Daoxue. However, she was also a person of few words. She didn't even let out a fart. She activated swift movement and charged into the crowd. She raised her hand and instantly killed two fragile players. F*CK. How could they endure being killed so close to them? As a result, the Spring River Heating Company players on the other side gave up on Wang Yu and went straight for North Sea Yoyu. The 300 or so Spring River Heating Company players finally gathered together. Under the bait of Wang Yu's group, they split into three. Each of the three brought 100 or so people and ran in three different directions. At the same time, Donald and Fei Tienda's group, who were searching in the forest and the ruins of the city, also received news that Xuanjin was at the foot of the mountain. As a result, the two sides gave up their original positions and surrounded the mountain slope. At this time, Wang Yu had already led the 100 or so people behind him to the location where Wu Ji and the others were lying in ambush. He threw down a cloning skill and disappeared from everyone's sight. Seeing the target they were chasing disappear, the Spring River Heating Company players were dumbfounded. The team was in chaos. What's going on? Why did the people in front follow? Why did they chase him until he disappeared? None of my business. The players in the front row were unconvinced. We're all short-legged. Why didn't you players in the back row follow? F***CK. That bastard could even kill Uncle Duck. Are you telling us to go and die? Hearing the players in the front row push the blame to themselves, the players in the back row were also dissatisfied. Everyone, stop arguing. Seeing that they were about to start fighting, a mage suddenly shouted, "What's the use of arguing? That kid can't have gone far. Everyone, look around carefully. Who knows where he might be lying in the bushes?" After being reminded by the mage, the noisy Spring River Heating Company players immediately calmed down and started looking around. At this time, a strange-looking snow sled appeared in front of everyone. Huh, it's a mount. Seeing the snow sled not far away, the eyes of the Spring River Heating Company players were instantly attracted. It was a battlefield map after all. Apart from killing people, finding a mount was also the most important part of the map. Now that they saw a mount, Spring River's warm water reacted this way purely out of instinct. Everyone cast detection at the sleigh, and the sleigh's attributes immediately appeared before everyone's eyes. Christmas Snow Sled, Celestial, F***CK. It's a multiplayer celestial mount. Mine. I saw it first. F***CK. It belongs to whoever rides it first. Seeing the attributes of the Christmas Snow Sled, everyone became excited. They didn't care where Wang Yu was and ran toward the snow sled while shouting. Chapter 1797. Online Games. I'm a martial arts scholar. Currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1798. God-tier mounts were things that could only be encountered by luck, not by searching for. Furthermore, this snow sleigh was a multi-person mount, so it was naturally the rarest of the rarest. Even if the items inside the battlefield couldn't be brought out, being able to ride this snow sleigh around the battlefield was a symbol of luck, wasn't it? However, Wu Ji, who was in the bushes, smirked when he saw the players surrounding him. He gestured to Chun Xiang, Mingdo, and the others behind him, and at the same time, he sent a message to Ming Jian, Dao Xue, lure the second wave over. 100 players wasn't too many, but it wasn't too few either. Everyone surrounded the sleigh, forming a circle. Following Wu Ji's signal, Spring Soaring waved his staff, casting a dark barrier. Boom! Just as the players from Spring River Heating Company were surrounding the sleigh, a black circle rose from the ground, trapping all of them inside. By the time the players from Spring River Heating Company reacted, they were all frozen in place. Not good, it's an ambush. The players from Spring River Heating Company who were under attack were startled, realizing that they had fallen into a trap. Before they could resist, they suddenly felt the ground beneath their feet heat up. A sea of flames rose from the ground, and dense lightning bolts descended from the sky. Bright Doe was an extreme fellow. His magic damage and basic attributes had already reached the pinnacle. Including the Vermilion Bird Staff's bonus fire-type spells, his damage could only be described as terrifying. After a wave of magic was cast, the players from Spring River Heating Company turned into white light and were teleported out of the battlefield. When the flames dissipated, only a dozen or so tanky players remained from the original team of over 100 players. One skill had taken out over 100 players, and it was clear just how high Mingdu's damage was. As for the survivors who were hit by Mingdu's magic, although they didn't die on the spot, the health bars above their heads had already turned red. Yang Na and Exquisite Dreams attacks took out a few more people, and there were less than 10 Spring River Heating Company players left. In a one-on-one situation, Chuanjin wasn't afraid of anyone. Wang Yu, Bao San, and the others rushed forward and killed all of the survivors. From the moment the team of over 100 players appeared to the moment they were wiped out, not even 20 seconds had passed. "Grandsons, come and chase me." After Wang Yu and the others annihilated the first wave of Spring River Worms players, they dragged the sled into a nearby bush. At this moment, Mingji and Dao Xue ran over from another direction with over 100 players behind him. As he ran, Mingji and Dao Xue did not forget to harass them with words. Don't run if you have the balls. Spring River's water heater's counterattack was also childish. If they didn't run, were they supposed to wait for you to kill them? Very quickly, Mingji and Dao Xue ran to the bushes where the sled was hidden. Chuckling, he activated stealth and disappeared from everyone's sight. F***CK. Shameless. Seeing that Mingji and Dao Xue had disappeared, Spring River's warm water skillfully took out the scouting guard and stuck it in the spot where Mingji and Dao Xue had disappeared. Then, the sled appeared before everyone's eyes. This is... Looking at the sled in the grass, the players in Spring River looked at each other. They were just players a moment ago. How did they become like this? Puzzled, everyone cast detection spells on it. The sleigh's attributes once again appeared before the players. Wuji was right. A new trick was not a new trick. It was fine as long as it worked. As expected of players from the same guild, after seeing the sleigh's attributes, their reaction was exactly the same as the previous wave of players. A group of people surged forward with a bang. Wuji smiled again and gestured to the people behind him. Then, he sent a message to Baiming Yoyu. Next wave. Dark barrier. Rise. Heavenly lightning, earth and fire. Fall. Arrow rain, fill the gap. Melee players fill the gap. Flash shadow chain kick. Army breaking, rising dragon, slash. Fuel drain. It was another set of perfect coordination. The second wave of Spring River's players was also wiped out. After cleaning up the battlefield, Baiming Yoyu led the third wave of Spring River's players into the encirclement. Everyone used the same trick again, using crowd control instead of attack to take them down in one go. In less than 3 minutes, the 337 people in Old Duck McDuck's party were wiped out. I'm so strong. I'm invincible. Mingdu was the main damage output in this ambush. As the chief cannon, Mingdu had obtained nearly 300 points. His confidence was inflated. If nothing went wrong, as long as this continued, the MVP of this match would definitely be Mingdu. It was already extremely difficult to snatch the MVP from the hands of the old dogs of Chuanjin. Moreover, there was a monster like Wang Yu in Chuanjin. Ever since Wang Yu joined Chuanjin, no matter what kind of battle Wang Yu fought, they would always be suppressed by Wang Yu. To be able to snatch the MVP from Wang Yu, it was clear that Mingdu's MVP status was very high. It was definitely enough for Mingdu to brag about it for the rest of his life. All right, stop talking nonsense. Just as Mingdu was feeling proud, Wuji poured cold water on him. This place is useless. Let's go. Leave. Mingdu was surprised. Aren't you going to set up a few more ambushes? Don't tell me you knew I was going to take the MPV. So you changed your strategy on purpose? Mingdu's doubt was not without reason. With Wuji's character, it was not rare for him to do such a thing. Ambush my ass, Wuji said in disdain. Do you think the other side is stupid? There was no reaction from so many people dying. 3 ambushes was already our limit. Spring River Heating Company had a total of more than 900 players. Scrooge McDuck and the other 337 players were 1/3 of the total. With a sudden loss of 1/3 of their members, even if the other side was stupid, they could see that it was a trap. In fact, when the first wave of Spring River Heating Company players was killed, the others had already noticed it. However, the other 2 teams were being kite by Baiming Yoyu and Mingjin Daoxue. As the authorities, they naturally did not have the time to care about the number of people on their side. However, Fei Tianda and Donald's team were bystanders. Of course, they could see it clearly. Seeing the number of people on their side suddenly drop by more than 300, Fei Tianda and Donald were stunned on the spot. Fei Tianda and Donald sent a message to Scrooge McDuck at the same time. Mike, Uncle Duck, what happened? In the end, the system replied calmly, the players you contacted are not in the service area. F***CK. Looking at the system's reply, Fei Tianda and Donald broke out in a cold sweat. 337 players were gone just like that. Even if there were more than 300 steam buns, it was impossible to finish them in such a short period of time. What was more terrifying was that they lost more than 300 people on their side, but the number of players on the other side did not decrease. 11 versus more than 300 players, and the whole team was wiped out without any casualties? Just thinking about it was unbelievable. Could it be a supernatural event or a system bug? If it did not happen to him, a rational person like Fei Tienda would definitely not believe such nonsense. Remember this book's domain name? Mobile version. Chapter 1799. Illusion. It must be an illusion. On the other side, Donald rubbed his eyes as he looked at the score above his head. It was obvious that he could not believe this reality. Old Tang, don't go to the mountainous area. Hurry to the city ruins. Just when Donald was at a loss of what to do, Fei Tienda sent him a message. As the guild leader, Fei Tienda was quite skilled. Although he did not know how Chuanjin managed to eliminate 300 players without suffering any damage, the truth was right in front of him. It was undeniable. Based on the number of players, it was a little exaggerated for 11 players to eliminate 300 players. However, it was not impossible. From the looks of it, the biggest possibility is that the Quanzhan sect picked up some strategic weapons on the battlefield or found some traps. No matter what, these guys did have the means to eliminate 300 players. Donald's team was not as strong as Scrooge McDuck's team. Scrooge McDuck's team was reduced to ashes in an instant. This showed how powerful the opponents were. Even if they sent another 300 players, it would only be a matter of adding firewood. Instead of sending Donald to his death, it was better for everyone to gather together. There was strength in numbers, and their chances of winning would be higher if everyone gathered together. Moreover, the more powerful a weapon was, the less mobile it was. This was even more true for traps. The terrifying equipment that could instantly kill 300 players was most likely a fixed turret that could not be moved. As such, once the battlefield shrank, Chuanjin's team would definitely be forced to throw away their weapons. Without the terrifying weapons and traps, wouldn't it be a piece of cake to send 11 players? All right, I'll head over now. Donald nodded and ordered his subordinates to change their direction and march toward the city ruins. Fei Tienda also ordered his subordinates to return the way they came. On the battlefield, the forest, the mountainous area, and the city ruins were distributed according to the character. The mountainous area that Chuanjin's team was currently at was in the middle of the forest and the city ruins. Fei Tienda's team had just left the city ruins not long ago. They had not traveled far, so it would only take them a while to return. However, Donald's team was slightly further away. Old dog Wuji, don't you dare trick me. Otherwise, I'll kill you too. On Chuanjin's side, Mingdu was still talking nonsense with Wuji. It was not easy for this kid to win an MVP under Wang Yu. Naturally, he did not want to be cheated by Wuji. Wuji was really annoyed by Mingdu's harassment. He waved his hand and said, "Whoever drags him out, I will give him 10,000 gold. Ha! Wang Yu stretched out his palm and pressed Mingdu to the side. Although Mingdu was audacious and dared to argue with anyone, he was still very self-aware in front of Wang Yu. Wang Yu's slap stunned Mingdu, and he didn't dare to speak anymore. At this time, Wang Yu picked up where Mingdu left off and asked, "If we're not going to ambush them, where are we going now?" Hee hee. Wuji chuckled and jumped on his sleigh. Then he turned around and said, "This is the place where we just landed. Everyone get on the sleigh. Otherwise, it will be too late." Seeing that Wuji was so urgent, everyone didn't think much and quickly jumped onto the sleigh again. As Wang Yu got on the sleigh, he asked inexplicably, "Why do we have to go back again?" Hee hee. Wuji said with a smile, "This question is very simple. If we were killed inexplicably, what would you do?" "I'll go up and avenge you." Wang Yu's answer was simple and crude. F*CKU. Hearing Wang Yu's answer, Wuji spat out a mouthful of old blood. Well, Wuji shouldn't have asked Wang Yu this question. This master was still the same as before. He was so honest that it made people feel sorry for him. It was not the kind of heartache that everyone understood but the kind of heartache that pierced the hearts of ordinary people. Of course, Wuji also knew that if someone else said this, they would definitely be bragging. But Wang Yu said this with confidence. After all, he had such strength. Use a normal answer, Brother Chun. Wuji turned his head and asked Chun Xiang as he drove. About this, Chun Xiang pondered for a moment and said, everyone's strength is about the same. If you were killed, the opponent would definitely be stronger than one of us. If it were me, I would definitely avoid the spearhead and find others to meet up. Then, we would beat them up together. See, this is normal thinking. Wuji said earnestly, Old cow, you have to take care of the emotions of normal people like us in the future. Wuji continued, they divided themselves into 3 parts, and we devoured 1/3 of them in one fell swoop. Now, the remaining 2 parts of them have received a shock. Just like what Brother Chun said, they will quickly find their companions to help each other. Speaking up to this point, Wuji marked on the big map and said, the place where we landed just now is by the roadside. That road is the only way from the forest to the city ruin. So we need to ambush on this road now and eat up the other group of people. The strength of Chun Xiang's players was not weak. The city ruin and the forest were maps that were easy to defend and hard to attack. If the remaining people of the opponent were to meet up in any of the maps, it would not be good for Chuanjin. If they could eliminate the other halfway, the rest would be easier. After Donald's group received the order, they immediately ran in the direction of the city ruin. They were already moving at top speed, but they had a lot of people after all. They had to take care of the speed of the front line's short legs, so their mobility was naturally not as fast as a small team like Chuanjin's. Moreover, Chuanjin now had the divine sleigh that had 360% acceleration, so their speed was even faster. When Chuanjin's group rushed back to their original landing point, Donald's group was only halfway there. Continue. When they arrived at the landing point, Wuji called out to everyone to continue with the same strategy as before. Chuanjin's people jumped off the sleigh, threw it on the side of the road, and then went into the bushes. Wang Yu, Mingji and Dao Xue, and Bai Ming Yuyu stood on the side of the road in a daze. What were they thinking? What are you 3 doing? Go and lure people over. Seeing the 3 of them standing on the side of the road like dumb geese, Wuji was also confused. CK, can you do it or not, Wuji? Mingji and Dao Xue shielded his eyes with his hands and looked at both sides. We don't even know where they are, so where do you want us to lure them over? Wasn't that right? Chuanjin's people did not see the players on the other side along the way, and they did not even know where they were. It would be very awkward if they ran in the wrong direction. In the direction of the forest. Wuji pointed to the left and said, this place is so close to the city ruin, and they can't run as fast as us. If we go in that direction, we will definitely meet them. Normal people would not be able to keep up with Wuji's train of thought. He could deduce the enemy's movements from small details. Wasn't that right? Donald's group walked slowly, and they definitely had not reached this place from the forest to the city ruin. The city ruin that Fei Tianda and the others were at was not far away. If they had walked in the direction of the forest, they would have already passed by. Therefore, regardless of whether the other side was gathering in the forest or gathering in the city ruin, they would definitely meet them if they walked in the direction of the forest. Pull up, load next chapters. Chapter 1800. Just as Wuji had expected, Wang Yu and the other 2 did not take long to walk in the direction of the forest before they saw Donald and the others rushing towards the direction of the city ruins. Someone's here. On the other side, Donald's group also saw Wang Yu and the others running toward them. With a lesson learned from Scrooge McDuck's group, Donald's group was much more cautious. Seeing 3 strangers running toward them, Donald's group tensed up and subconsciously placed their weapons in front of their chests. Of course, as they were too far away, Donald did not dare to confirm that the 3 people running toward them were Chuanjin's men. To prevent friendly fire, Donald frowned and shouted from afar, "Brothers in front, which group are you from?" "I am from the 386th Brigade Independent Regiment." Ming Jian Daoshi shouted loudly when he heard that. Then, he and Wang Yu continued to charge forward silently. 386th Brigade? What's that? It would have been fine if Ming, Jian, Daoxue hadn't answered, because Donald would have been certain that these three people were from the Quanjin sect. However, Ming, Jian, Daoxue's sudden reply caused Donald and the others to be dumbfounded. They couldn't figure out what exactly the 386th Brigade was. They're not messing with us, are they? Just as everyone was puzzled, a weak voice interrupted everyone's guesses. Hearing his companion's reminder, Donald immediately reacted. He quickly pointed at Wang Yu's group of three and shouted, "Not good. These people are Xuanjin's men. Everyone attack." Upon receiving Donald's command, the players from Spring River Heating Company immediately raised their weapons. However, it was already too late. Putting aside other things, Xuanjin was definitely a professional when it came to running away. Wang Yu's skills went without saying. Ming, Jian, Daoxue, and Bai Mingyu were assassins known for their speed. The three of them ran very quickly. Just as Spring River Warm Waters players were deep in thought, the three of them had already arrived near their formation. Before Spring River Warm Waters players could even aim their weapons, Ming, Jian, Daoxue, and Bai Mingyu had already charged toward the two sides of their formation, one on the left and one on the right. The attacks of the Spring River Heating Company's players were uniformly directed at Wang Yu. The problem with team battles was this uniformity. Truly advanced teamwork was to attack continuously, not giving the opponent a chance to breathe. Only teams that did not have enough teamwork would like to use the most orderly formation to launch a wave of attacks at the target. The only ranged attackers were mages and archers. This was the game world. With the help of the system, the accuracy of archers was extremely high. If everyone shot at the same time, the hit point would naturally be the same. If they attacked in unison, other than the attack power, the damage range would be almost the same as if they were shot by a single person. Wang Yu was a veteran of hundreds of battles. He had been randomly shot at who knew how many times. One look at the Spring River Warm Waters players' attacks, and he knew the effect of their attacks. Facing the attacks of the Spring River Warm Waters players, Wang Yu smiled slightly. He suddenly increased the speed of his collapsing fist and instantly crossed a distance of 5 meters. Pooh! Following a muffled sound, countless arrows stuck into the ground behind Wang Yu. At the same time, a large amount of magic descended from the sky and landed on Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu was not in a hurry. He suddenly pounced forward and rolled on the ground. He once again rushed over 3 meters and pounced at the feet of the Spring River Warm Waters players' formation. Seeing this, the Spring River Warm Waters players hurriedly raised their weapons and smashed downwards. Meanwhile, Wang Yu's figure flashed and directly appeared in the middle of the Spring River Warm Waters players' formation. He clasped his hands together, and a ball of flames surrounded Wang Yu's arms. Immediately after, Wang Yu twisted his waist. Under Wang Yu's movement technique, the crimson flames drew a 3-meter diameter circle with Wang Yu as the center. Whoosh! In a split second, a circle of white light lit up and the crimson flames intertwined. On the spot, there were more than 10 players killed by Wang Yu's flame blade. Instantly, the area around Wang Yu was empty. Luckily, Donald was far away from Wang Yu. Otherwise, he would have been the first to be sent out of the battlefield by Wang Yu. Seeing this scene, the Spring River Warm Waters players could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Everyone was a normal person. They had never seen such an overpowered scene. This Mother of Asterisk killed a whole group with one move. If it was a mage, they would not have said anything. However, this guy in front of them was clearly just a grandmaster of combat, yet he had such an overpowered damage output. It was truly shocking. Not only the Spring River Warm Waters players, but even Ming Jian and Daoxue, who were not far away, were shocked. To be able to use a single target attack skill to cause an area of effect attack damage, probably only Wang Yu could do it in the entire game. After killing everyone, Wang Yu did not stop at all. He turned around and jumped out of the encirclement, running away. It was the most exciting thing to run after acting cool. Originally, when the Spring River Warm Water players saw how fierce Wang Yu was, they were all stunned. Not a single person dared to step forward and provoke Wang Yu. At this time, seeing Wang Yu turn around and run, Donald's courage also came out of nowhere. He pointed at Wang Yu's back and shouted, "That brat is done with his 3 moves. Don't let him get away." Everyone, chase after him. Chase after him. Receiving Donald's order, the Spring River warm water players began to chase after Wang Yu without thinking. Of course, North Sea Yoyu and Ming Jian and Dao Xue both knew what they were here for. Therefore, the two of them rushed to the enemy's left and right, raised their daggers, and started a massacre at the back row. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. White lights lit up one after another, and in an instant, the two of them had killed 7 to 8 brittle archers. There are still experts behind them. You guys chase after the ones in front. We'll deal with the 2 at the back. With the back row cut off, the Spring River warm water players immediately discovered Ming Jian and Dao Xue. Therefore, under Donald's command, the entire formation split into 3 groups and chased in 3 different directions. After a player died and left the battlefield, they could not communicate with the players in the battlefield. Therefore, although Scrooge McDuck's group had been ambushed by Chuanjin, Donald and the others only knew that Scrooge McDuck's group was gone, but they did not know how Scrooge McDuck had disappeared. Not far from the city ruins, Chuanjin's group had naturally set up a trap. Wang Yu's group led their pursuers into the trap one after another. Just like before, Chuanjin's group also used the Christmas sleigh as bait, luring the Spring River warm water players to watch, and then suddenly launching an attack. They repeated the same trick again and again. After 3 consecutive waves of attacks, the team of more than 300 led by Donald was completely devoured by Chuanjin in a few minutes. At this moment, only 1/3 of the Spring River warm water players were left in the city ruins. Fei Tianda and the others, who were hiding in the city ruins, saw that the number of players on their side had suddenly dropped by more than 300. A line of cold sweat flowed down their cheeks. Chapter 1801. That was more than 300 people. If Donald's group was killed on the mountainside like Scrooge McDuck's group, Fei Tianda could completely understand that the Quanjin sect had gotten their hands on a weapon of mass destruction near the hillside, or perhaps it was a trap. However, Donald's group was killed on the way to the city ruins. This proved that Chuanjin's frightening weapon could be moved, and it was the kind that was relatively convenient. If that was the case, since Chuanjin could easily kill Donald and Scrooge McDuck, then it wouldn't be a problem for them to kill Fei Tianda's group. In the beginning, Fei Tianda still held some hope that Chuanjin would succeed. He thought that the opponent was only a small team of a dozen or so players. The reason why they dared to fight against nearly 1,000 players was because they had nothing to lose. As long as they killed people, they would be able to break even. However, Fei Tianda could see that this group of people didn't have that intention. It seemed that they wanted to devour nearly 1,000 players on his side. A dozen or so players wanted to devour 1,000 players. Just this courage alone was unimaginable. Were these fellows all crazy? What was more frightening was that this small team of 11 players had already devoured 2/3 of Spring Riverworm's forces. Moreover, they didn't even lose a single player. At this moment, Fei Tianda became nervous. He didn't dare to treat Chuanjin as a small team anymore, as expected of the Pro Alliance's champion team. Putting aside the value of this championship, professional experts had the ability to crush ordinary players. "Boss, what do we do now?" Seeing the Quanjin sect wipe out Scrooge McDuck's and Donald's teams, Fei Tianda, who was the leader of the Quanjin sect, started to feel nervous. The morale of the players under him was at its lowest point. At this moment, facing a small team of a dozen or so players, he actually started to panic. If the opponent had tens of thousands of players, it wouldn't be shameful if they died. However, the opponent only had a dozen or so players, yet they had wiped out nearly 1,000 of their players. The feeling and pressure they felt was completely different. Everyone, don't panic. As the leader of a guild, Fei Tianda naturally understood the principle of putting a bear in a nest. Right now, everyone's morale was low. If he didn't calm down, his team would definitely collapse. Hence, Fei Tianda pondered for a moment before saying, The other side only has a dozen or so people. They definitely won't be our match in a head-on battle. But Old Tang and the others, seeing that Fei Tianda was going to bring up the matter of numbers, his subordinates curled their lips in disdain. If numbers were of any use, how could the 600 people on his side be wiped out without a sound? You know nothing. Hearing that, Fei Tianda rudely interrupted his subordinate's doubts, and then confidently said, "Didn't you notice that Old Tang and the others were killed very strangely?" Strange? What's so strange about it? Everyone asked in confusion. Fei Tianda said, "They didn't die on the battlefield." Everyone went silent when they heard Fei Tianda's words. 300 of Scrooge McDuck's men had died while they were searching the perimeter of the camp, while Donald's men had died on the way from the forest. So, Fei Tianda continued his analysis. They must have used bait to set up some sort of trap to wipe out Old Tang and the others. As long as we defend this city ruin and don't take the initiative to attack, their trap will be useless. When the battlefield shrinks, they can fight us head-on, and we might not necessarily lose. It seemed that even though Fei Tianda said that he wasn't afraid, he was still rather fearful of Chuanjin. Fei Tianda only dared to say that they might not lose if 300 people fought against a dozen people head-on. That makes sense. Fear came from the unknown. The reason why everyone was afraid of Chuanjin was because they didn't know what kind of method this small team of a dozen people had used to devour 600 people consecutively. Hearing Fei Tianda's analysis, the originally fearful hearts of the others instantly calmed down. The city ruins terrain was complicated, and it was a position that was easy to defend and hard to attack. With such a cover, it wouldn't be a problem for them to fight against many, not to mention that there were only a dozen of them. Duck 4. Seeing that everyone's low morale was starting to rise, Fei Tianda quickly struck the iron while it was hot and commanded, "You take a team to guard the south gate. Duck 6. You take a team to guard the north gate." After arranging the tasks for the guards, Fei Tianda continued, "Remember, you must place a hole at the gate. Don't let the assassins sneak in, understand?" Understood. After receiving Fei Tianda's command, everyone scattered in all directions. Just as Fei Tianda was commanding the defense of the position, Chuanjin had also finished cleaning up the battlefield. I didn't think that we would be able to defeat 2/3 of the people on the other side so easily. The people from Chuanjin were also very surprised at the fact that they had wiped out the Spring River Heating Company's players twice. Of course, they knew that they could win, but they didn't think that it would be so easy. "That was just the appetizer," Wuji said calmly. "The last 300 people will be the toughest bones to chew." Wuji is joking again. Mingdu patted his chest and said, "Later, we will drive the snow sleigh to the city ruin and then continue to let Old Cow and the other two lure out their enemies. I will be able to wipe them all out with one spell." After 2 waves of battle, Mingdu had more than 500 points, and it seemed that he had swelled a lot. "It's useless." Wuji smiled and said, "Now that they know how powerful we are, they will definitely hide like turtles, and the snow sleigh definitely won't work. If I'm not wrong, these people should be hiding in the city ruin, waiting for the battlefield to shrink before facing us head-on." "I'm not afraid of facing them head-on." Mingdu continued to act cool. "One spell from me, and they will all scram." Before Mingdu could finish his words, he was slapped down by Bao San. The others also glared at Mingdu. Seeing everyone's gazes that looked like they wanted to eat him alive, Mingdu was so scared that he shrank his neck. Damn, it was fine that they wanted to snatch points, but they also didn't know how to keep a low profile. Weren't they asking for death? The other side still has 311 people. Wuji pointed at the number of people above his head and said, "And they have the position as cover. If we face them head-on, although we may not lose, it will definitely not be too easy to win. This kind of retarded fighting style is not in line with my style, and it is also different from the outcome that I deduced before." After hanging around with Wuji for so long, the people of Chuanjin all knew that although Wuji's tactical style was flexible and changeable, this kid had a habit. He would definitely set a goal for himself before battle. For example, how many people died in order to win this battle. Moreover, Wuji had obsessive-compulsive disorder about this deduction result. There was one time when one person died less than the result of the deduction. This bastard Wuji even maliciously commanded his people to deliberately send people to die. His method was extremely despicable. What is the result of your deduction? Everyone asked carefully, for fear that they would be sent to death by Wuji. A complete victory, Wuji said indifferently. Chapter 1802. Wuji, you're getting ahead of yourself. Someone else has the geographical advantage, all right? Hearing Wuji's words, everyone curled their lips. It was not that Xuanzhen had never fought against a few hundred people. However, that was when Xuanzhen had the geographical advantage on the battlefield. Right now, Warm River Guild had occupied the city ruins, and Xuanzhen had lost their geographical advantage. Wasn't it ridiculous to think that they could wipe out the other party without losing a single person? What do you know? Wuji laughed. How can a battle of occupation be commanded by a single person? Those who know how to defend are called holding their ground. Those who don't know how to defend are called surrendering. As they spoke, Wuji drove the sled and brought Xuanzhen's members to the vicinity of the city ruins. Although the city ruins were called a city, it was only the size of a village. However, it was more than enough to accommodate 300 people. Get off, get off! When everyone saw the outline of the city gates, Wuji suddenly drifted and drove the sled into the bushes. Then, he jumped off the sled and urged the others to get off as well. What? We're not going in directly? Seeing that Wuji was listening, Wang Yu asked in surprise. We have to sneak in. Wuji pointed at the city gates and said, there must be an ambush at the city gates. If we just go in like this, we will be in a very passive position. On the battlefield, the first to attack was the one with the initiative. If they entered the city without knowing the enemy's hiding spot, they would definitely be attacked by the enemy first. This city ruins did not cover a large area. As long as Xuanzhen's members exposed themselves, the other players from Warm River Guild would definitely rush over to support them. Flying equipment was not allowed in this map. When that happened, only Wang Yu and a dozen people would be in a passive position against 300 people. No one would be able to escape. Wuji was someone who would suffer losses. No matter how disadvantageous the situation was, he still had to take the initiative. Then I'll go and see where they're hiding. Famous sword Dao Shui volunteered and charged forward with his dagger. Come back. Wuji pulled Dao Shui back and said, do you think they're stupid? There's definitely a hidden unit at the entrance. Let old you go. All right. Bai Ming Yoyu nodded and used her earth escape technique to enter the ground. Not long after, Bai Ming Yoyu sent a message. There are a total of 4 entrances to the city ruin. There's a team of about 20 people lying in ambush at each entrance. The others are on standby nearby. They'll be able to reach each exit in 30 seconds. Did you see that? Receiving the message from Bai Ming Yoyu, Wuji spread his hands and said, these guys have already opened the bag and are waiting for us to enter. Then what should we do? Chun Xiang and the others could not help but frown at the sight of this. It had to be said that the commander of the spring river water heater was quite skilled. He actually used the terrain to his advantage and set up a trap, planning to lure the enemy into the trap. Fortunately, their opponent was the old thief Wuji, who was even more cunning than them. Otherwise, as soon as they entered the city, they would have fallen into his trap. Hee, that's easy, Wuji said calmly. This bag is too complicated. As long as we can enter quietly, we'll be able to take the initiative. When that time comes, who knows who will be the tortoise in the trap? After saying that, Wuji ordered, Old Cow, go to the north gate and set fire. The rest of you, follow me to the south gate. The so-called setting fire was to attract attention. Once the target was exposed, it would definitely attract the other players to chase after them. At that time, the rest of the Xuanzhen team could take the opportunity to enter. Of course, not everyone could escape unscathed after being chased and beaten up by hundreds of people. The only person who could take on this responsibility was Wang Yu. Understood. Wang Yu nodded with certainty and ran toward the north gate of the city ruin alone. The others followed behind Wuji and ran toward the south gate of the city ruin. At the south gate of the city ruin, Duckfor led a team of people to lie in ambush behind the gate. Fei Tianda had specially instructed them not to expose themselves to the enemy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to achieve victory by surprise. With so many of his comrades dead, Duckfor knew that the enemies they were facing were not to be trifled with. Hence, he didn't dare to slack off. The group of people hid behind the gate and stared at the gate attentively. They didn't even dare to blink. They held their weapons in their hands and were ready to attack at any time. However, at that moment, a Grandmaster of Combat swaggered through the gate. The Grandmaster of Combat had a burly body and a threatening aura. It was none other than Wang Yu. Wang Yu's senses were very strong. Once he entered the gate, he instantly sensed dozens of murderous gazes in the dark. Hence, he walked toward Duckfor's group unhurriedly. "Boss, they're here. Do you want to fight?" Duckfor's underlings asked anxiously when they saw Wang Yu swaggering over. "Let's wait and see." Duckfor said cautiously, "This brat might be the vanguard. Let's wait for them to come in before we make our move." Oh. The underling nodded as if he understood. He didn't say anything else. At that moment, Wang Yu was less than 5 meters away from where Duckfor and the rest were hiding. Just as Duckfor and the rest were patiently waiting for an ambush, Wang Yu stared at the direction where they were hiding and said, "All of you, come out. I'll let you all die a quick death." Everyone was stunned when they heard Wang Yu's words. The underling from before was even more nervous. "Damn, this bastard found us. What the F***CK? Duckfor was speechless. He's bluffing." However, just as Duckfor finished speaking, Wang Yu continued, "I'm not bluffing. You must be their boss." As soon as the word boss left his mouth, Wang Yu's body suddenly swayed. He stretched out his right arm, and a white light swept over. Duckfor didn't know what was going on. He only felt someone pulling him. Before he could react, he was already in Wang Yu's hands. Duckfor's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw Wang Yu in front of him. He frantically moved his limbs in an attempt to break free from Wang Yu's control. Duckfor was just an assassin. How could he be a match for Wang Yu in terms of strength? Wang Yu didn't waste time talking to Duckfor. He grabbed Duckfor's ankle and swung him. Bang! Duckfor's head was slammed against the wall by Wang Yu. It instantly turned into a white light. Wow! Seeing that Duckfor was killed, Duckfor's underlings panicked. They shouted in the guild channel, "This is bad. Xuanzhen's men are rushing in from the south gate." At the same time, Wang Yu leaped into the crowd and killed one of them with a thunderstomp. He landed on the ground and twisted his body with a flaming blade. The 20 people didn't know what was going on. They were instantly wiped out by Wang Yu. Fei Tianda wasn't an idiot. Of course, he knew that Xuanzhen was trying to lure them away. When he saw the message in the guild channel, he quickly replied, "How many people?" However, at that moment, Fei Tianda received a system notification that all 20 of his men had been wiped out. Chapter 1803. After receiving the system notification, Fei Tianda's questions came to an abrupt end. Clearly, to be able to instantly kill a 20-man party in such a short amount of time, it definitely wasn't a single person. Without the cooperation of a team, it would definitely be difficult to do so. However, Fei Tianda was also very cautious. He immediately ordered, "Guards at the entrance, don't move. Everyone else, follow me to the north gate." Following Fei Tianda's order, hundreds of players majestically rushed towards the north gate. Over there, the north and south gates of the city ruins were only a few hundred meters apart. After walking for a short while, the archers with good eyesight saw Wang Yu, who had just finished killing people and was currently strolling around the city. Kill him. Fei Tianda was also very decisive. He immediately gave the order to attack the distant Wang Yu. The players from Spring River's water heater were also battle-hardened veterans. After receiving the order, they quickly opened up their formation. The tanks were in front, the damage dealers were at the back, and magic arrows flew towards Wang Yu. At this moment, Wang Yu was facing a 200-man party. Although Wang Yu had the ability to instantly kill a 20-man party, a 200-man party wasn't as simple as 1+1. The other players weren't just pieces of wood that wouldn't fight back. On the contrary, as professional players, whether it was equipment or mechanics, they were comparable to elite players from large guilds like Blood Alliance. After the tanks opened up their formation and used shield wall, even a boss would have a hard time breaking through. Moreover, Wang Yu wasn't a boss, so he didn't have a long health bar. Just now, the 20-man party was standing in a rather concentrated position. Moreover, Wang Yu had suddenly attacked, causing everyone to be in a daze when they were killed. This was why Wang Yu was able to deal maximum damage. Moreover, a 200-man party was definitely something that Wang Yu couldn't do. When Wang Yu dealt damage, he would definitely be dealt damage by others. Going back and forth, as long as he moved, his damage output would be affected, and if he didn't move, he would be killed on the spot. Therefore, even if Wang Yu faced more than 200 people head-on, if he couldn't kill all of them in the first round, the only outcome would be death. Of course, it wasn't difficult for Wang Yu to retreat unscathed. After all, Wang Yu's goal wasn't to single-handedly annihilate his opponents. Seeing Fei Tianda and the others shooting arrows at him, Wang Yu smiled and turned around to run. At the same time, he sent a message to Wuji. They are at the north gate. It didn't matter if Wang Yu turned and ran, but when Fei Tianda saw this, he immediately concluded that there must be an ambush behind Wang Yu. Xuanzhen's men must be lying in ambush at the north gate. Thus, he hurriedly called for them to stop. Don't chase. Everyone, spread out and pay attention to the surroundings. While Fei Tianda and the others were distracted by Wang Yu, Wuji brought Xuanzhen's group to the south gate. I will hold them. Everyone follow me. When they arrived at the south gate, just as Yin Lao was about to raise a shield and rush in, Wuji quickly grabbed Yin Lao and said, "Don't move." After saying that, Wuji pointed to the other side of the gate and signaled to place one's pride with his eyes. Jump over there. Okay. To place one's pride understood Wuji's meaning and jumped from one side of the gate to the other. As Fei Tianda had instructed them to not let down their guard, Duck 6, who was at the south gate, didn't go to the north gate to support. Instead, he led his team to watch the gate from behind. However, when everyone was focused on watching, a figure suddenly flashed past the gate. Someone is here. Duck 6 was shocked when he saw someone jump past the gate. He quickly stood up and pointed to the gate and said, "Everyone, chase after him." If it was at the beginning, Duck 6 would definitely not dare to chase after him. However, Fei Tianda had basically confirmed that Xuanzhen's people were at the north gate. Now that this person was definitely sent by Xuanzhen to ambush them, Duck 6 naturally wouldn't let go of any opportunity to make a contribution. Duck 6 men were also very smart. Following Duck 6's order, everyone stood up and rushed out of the gate. The people of Xuanzhen were already waiting outside the gate. As soon as Duck 6 men rushed out of the gate, Spring Soaring pointed his staff. Boom! A dark Kekai rose. Duck 6 men were instantly frozen on the spot. Collapsing mountain and splitting earth. Meteor arrow. Flickering shadow chain kick. This B** starred Mingdu had snatched more than half of the kills. The members of the Quanjin sect had long been dissatisfied. At this moment, when they saw that Duck 6 and his group were locked in place, they didn't wait for Mingdu's magic to land. Instead, they rushed forward and used a wave of big moves to kill Duck 6 and his group. F***CK. Duck 6, who was standing at the back of the group, was instantly dumbfounded. Didn't they say that all the people of Xuanzhen were at the north gate? Why did so many people appear at the south gate? This didn't make sense. F***CK. Don't you have any shame? While Duck 6 was still in shock, Mingdu suddenly pointed at the people who had snatched the kills and scolded them. Trash. Faced with Mingdu's arrogance, the people of Xuanzhen turned around and stared at Mingdu fiercely. Seeing everyone's murderous gazes, Mingdu quickly turned around and looked behind the gate. He pointed his staff at Duck 6 and said, "There's another one over there." Duck 6 couldn't help but shiver when he heard this. He quickly rolled backward, turned around, and ran away. Seeing that Duck 6 had run away, the people of Xuanzhen didn't intend to chase after him. Only Wuji urged, "Stop acting. Hurry up and enter the city." Saying this, the people of Qianjin quickly slipped into the ruins of the city. At this time, Fei Tianda also received a message from Duck 6. "Boss, the people of Qianjin are at the south gate." "Impossible." Fei Tianda was very confident in his judgment of the battlefield. He had just concluded that Qianjin was at the north gate, and now someone had proven his judgment wrong. Fei Tianda was very unhappy. Just as he was about to reply to the message to refute, the system notified him that one of his teammates had been killed. Fei Tianda was dumbfounded. At the same time, Duck 6 sent another message. "It's true. I saw them all. Luckily, I ran fast enough. Otherwise, I would have died too." F***CK. What a strange thing. Fei Tianda heard this. No matter how unwilling he was to believe it, he had to believe it. After all, Fei Tianda had only seen Wang Yu at the North Gate. Everything else was just speculation. However, Duck 6 had actually seen the people of Qianjin. Thinking of this, Fei Tianda cursed angrily. He hurriedly waved at the others and said, "Qianjin has entered the city. Everyone, hurry up and return to defend." With this order, the players of Spring River Heating Company followed behind Fei Tianda and ran into the city. At this time, the people of Qianjin had already entered the city. Looking at the empty position, Wu Ji smiled and said to the people of Qianjin, "Do you see that? Such a good terrain is the best for guerrilla warfare. Now that the news of us entering the city has spread, the enemies will return to defend soon. Everyone, spread out and capture them yourselves." Chapter 1804. The Quanjin sect had always been a wretched guild ever since it was founded. Before they played Rebirth, this guild was like a rat on the street. Everyone wanted to beat them up. Now, being chased all over the streets was a common occurrence. No one could beat them in guerrilla warfare, especially when it came to fighting in the city. They were definitely at the level of a grandmaster. Let alone Warm Springs group of 300 players. Even if they were being chased by tens of thousands of players, these players would still be like walking dogs, leaving their opponents helpless. When Qianjin dispersed, Fei Tianda also brought his subordinates into the city. At this time, Qianjin's players were nowhere to be seen. Under normal circumstances, 300 players against a dozen players would definitely spread out and search. The city ruins weren't big, so they would be able to find them quickly if they searched every room. However, Fei Tianda had already experienced Qianjin's strength. He knew that there was at least one person in this group who could instantly kill a small team. Naturally, he didn't dare to order everyone to spread out and search. Instead, he decisively ordered, "Everyone, don't move. Stand in a circular formation." Following Fei Tianda's order, the players from Spring River Heater hurriedly stood back to back in a circle. The tankers raised their shields and surrounded the circle, protecting the formation like an iron bucket. Hello, everyone. Just as the players from Spring River Heater stood in formation, a rough voice suddenly came from above. Everyone looked up and saw a burly player dressed as a grandmaster of combat descending from the sky. His feet were covered in lightning, and he landed right in the center of the players from Spring River Heater. There was no need for an introduction. This was undoubtedly Wang Yu. Boom! With a loud bang, lightning scattered in all directions with Wang Yu at the center. The players in the center of the circle were all clerics and archers, so they naturally couldn't withstand Wang Yu's thunderstomp. Wang Yu's stomp lit up and instantly cleared all the players under his feet. To prevent an assassin's sneak attack, the players from Spring River Heater stood very closely together. Of course, Wang Yu's thunderstomp was very solid. With just one stomp, Wang Yu killed 7 or 8 people. The players from Spring River Heating Company were stunned by Wang Yu's sudden kick. Everyone knew that when a player was in a bad mood during a game, they would fight randomly. It was the same for the Spring River Warm players. Everyone panicked and subconsciously surged forward, trying to kill Wang Yu on the spot. However, the moment Wang Yu landed on the ground, his hands suddenly crossed. A raging flame burst out and wrapped around Wang Yu's arms. After landing on the ground, Wang Yu used his waist as an axis and swung his arms horizontally behind him. Suddenly, a long flame blade made a 360-degree slash. Whoosh! Streaks of white light intertwined with the crimson flames in Wang Yu's hands. With Wang Yu at the center, the area within 5 meters was directly cleared. More than 20 archers, mages, and priests were instantly killed by Wang Yu. Seeing this scene, Fei Tianda and the others were completely dumbfounded. After fighting for so long, this was the first time Fei Tianda and the others saw the standard of a Chuanjian player in a head-on battle. What kind of monster is this? In just one round, he killed more than 30 people. What kind of monster is this? Could it be that these people are all monsters of this standard? At this moment, no one was surprised that Chuanjian could kill more than 300 people in one go. After using a set of skills, Wang Yu did not stop. Before Fei Tianda and the others could react, Wang Yu leaped into the air and used Flash to appear outside the encirclement of the Spring Riverworm players. Then, he turned around and ran. His skills are on cooldown. Don't let him escape. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to escape, Fei Tianda immediately reacted and pointed in the direction that Wang Yu disappeared to and gave the order to chase. Although the Spring Riverworm players were slightly afraid of Wang Yu, since the boss had already given the order, who would dare to disobey? Therefore, everyone chased in the direction that Wang Yu disappeared to without hesitation. In the end, Wang Yu led this group of people and turned here and there before entering a small alley. Once they entered the alley, the Spring Riverworm players did not know why they felt uneasy. Creak! At this moment, the door of a house at the back of the team opened. Then, a cold-looking assassin appeared out of thin air. Wielding a dagger with both hands, the assassin rushed into the team of Spring River Heatings players, leaving a trail of afterimages. Pu, a backstab, a cut throat, and a shadow stab. The assassin raised his dagger, and 3 white lights lit up at almost the same time. An archer and 2 mages in the Spring Riverworm players' formation were killed on the spot. Behind, kill him. Wang Yu's appearance just now had already caused the morale of the Spring Riverworm players to plummet. Now that they were suddenly attacked from behind, their morale had already collapsed. Roaring, they turned around to attack the assassin who had ambushed them. In the end, the assassin calmly plunged headfirst into the ground, as if he was diving into the water. Right after the assassin disappeared, another assassin with a wretched expression appeared on the other side. After stabbing the shield warrior closest to him, he activated swift movement and ran forward. An assassin actually dared to provoke the shield warrior in the front row. Naturally, the shield warrior in the front row could not tolerate this. Without a word, he lowered his head and charged forward. Just as he was about to catch up to his target, the wretched assassin turned around and entered the house beside him. Seeing this, the shield warriors walked up to the door without hesitation and reached out to push it open. Creak! As soon as the door was pushed open, Yin Lao Air raised his shield and charged out of the room with charge activated. Yin Lao Air possessed incomparable strength. Coupled with the charge skill, the enemy who opened the door was caught off guard. Yin Lao Air directly slammed into the opposite wall of the room. Meanwhile, Yin Lao Air crashed into the encirclement of the Spring Riverworm players. Courting death. Kill him. After being hung up and beaten for so long, the Spring Riverworm players were filled with rage. Seeing that Chuanjian's members were alone, it was only natural that they became bold. A group of players raised their shields and smashed them at Yin Lao Air. Seeing this, the corner of Yin Lao Air's mouth rose, revealing a trace of a smile. He raised his left hand's middle finger and shouted, "Bastard!" Following Yin Lao Air's shout, the Spring Riverworm players suddenly lost control of their bodies and were pulled in front of Yin Lao Air. Collapsing mountain, splitting earth slash. At the same time, a thunderous roar resounded. Bao San descended from the sky with the sword of the heavenly god in his hands. Boom! The instant the Spring Riverworm players were taunted by Yin Lao Air, Bao San's sword of the heavenly god was heavily stabbed into the ground. Numerous cracks flashed with a fiery red light as they spread out on the ground. Everyone within the range of the collapsing mountain slash was sent flying by Bao San. Breaking Dragon Slash. After sending his target flying, Bao San pulled out his long sword and swung it upwards. The Spring River Warm players who had already been sent flying were once again sent flying. Fierce Dragon Slash. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version. Chapter 1805. Warriors were an extremely powerful class in the game. Not only was their defense second only to knights, but their damage was also second only to mages and assassins. As a top-tier warrior, Bao San's equipment and stats were among the best. He was not much weaker than a proper professional player. In Rebirth, sending a player flying was considered a hard crowd control. The players who were sent flying would lose all their skills. Naturally, these shield warriors could not even raise their shields. Without the protection of a shield, Bao San's 3 powerful skills immediately took away more than half of the shield warrior's HP, even though the shield warrior was tanky. Phantom Constellation. Milky Way Descent. After Bao San finished his set of skills, the 2 girls' voices came from above. Yang Na and Exquisite Dream raised their crossbows and shot black and white rays of light at Spring River Infusion and the others. The black shadow arrows were like an all-encompassing illusion. The silver crossbow arrows fell like meteors. After being hit by the black shadow arrows, Spring River Infusion's feet sank. He could not move and could only allow the silver arrows to land on his body. Shield warriors were extremely disgusting in the late game. Their defense was so high that it was depressing. These guys had already lost more than half of their HP to Bao San. Now, after taking a set of skills from Yang Na and Exquisite Dream, their HP had barely reached red. Fortunately, to place one's pride, Mingjian Daoxue and the others followed up with another attack. Only then were they able to kill off the frontline players. Retreat. Retreat. As the most important part of a team, the tank class was the guarantee of a team's survival. Without the tank class, the team had lost the ability to survive. Now that the frontline players were almost completely wiped out, Fei Tianhe panicked. With Yin Lao Air and the others blocking the way, Fei Tianhe naturally did not dare to advance. He could only order his subordinates to retreat. Boom! However, just as everyone retreated to the entrance of the alley, a black circle rose from the ground, blocking Fei Tianhe's group. Spring River Infusion was not a newbie. He naturally knew the effects of Dark Barrier. Thus, he retreated once more. However, everyone's feet sank as if they were being pulled by something. They were unable to move. Everyone hurriedly looked down and saw that a patch of thorns had appeared under their feet. Their feet were tightly bound by the thorns. Oldly, time to clean up. The voice of a wretched uncle came from outside the alley. Accompanied by the wretched uncle's shout, everyone felt a heat under their feet, and a sea of fire drilled out of the ground. There was also lightning in the sea of fire. The thorns on the ground ignited when they came in contact with the fire. The 2 borrowed strength from each other, and the raging flames instantly reached the roof, instantly engulfing more than half of the players in the alley. Over half of Spring River's 200-plus members were annihilated in a single exchange. Most of them were magic classes with short legs. At the end of the day, Fei Tianhe and the others were still experts. In that situation, while the classes with short legs could not escape, archers, assassins, and warriors did not lack escape skills. When Mingdu's flames rose, Fei Tianhe and the others broke free from Chun Xiang's control. The warrior took the lead, lowering his head and activating charge. He forcefully knocked Yin Lao Air's group out of the alleyway, while the agility-type players followed behind and escaped. At this moment, Wu Ji poked his head out from the roof and looked in the direction that Fei Tianhe and the others had fled. He smiled and said, "You guys have lost. Remember to pay up." F*CK. Everyone beat their chests and stomped their feet. They pointed at Mingdu and scolded, "Oldly, you trash. Daddy finally managed to block them. Why didn't you wipe them out?" Just now, Yin Lao Air and the others had made a bet with Wu Ji that they could finish the battle in one go. Who knew that they would still let Fei Tianhe and the others escape after all their calculations? Losing to trash like Wu Ji, they were quite unwilling. Nonsense. Mingdu also said anxiously, Grandpas, I just threw out a spell and instantly killed over 100 people. There's so many of them. How could I kill them all in one go? If you want to blame someone, blame Springdog. His control was so weak that people could still break free. Ergu, what are you laughing at? Chun Xiang was also unhappy when he heard this. Why didn't you stop them just now? Stop your grandpa. Yin Lao Air, who was watching Mingdu and Chun Xiang foolishly bickering with each other, saw that the spearhead was pointed at him. He also said with justice, F***CK, I alone fought against an entire team? Are you kidding me? It's all Foreskin's fault. It's none of my business. Foreskin rolled his eyes and said murderously, I only know how to kill. I won't block the way. Isn't that so? A good dog doesn't block the way. Foreskin is obviously much more obedient than you bunch of stupid dogs. To place one's pride, Dao Xue and the others were also watching the show. All right. At such a crucial moment, it was still Wuji, as the guild leader, who was more reliable. Seeing that his companions were about to start killing each other before they even finished off the enemy, Wuji quickly interrupted. Those guys have already run far away, and you guys are still here to shirk responsibility. Where did they run off to? Chun Xiang came over and asked. Just now, Chun Xiang was at the other end of the alley and did not see the direction that Fei Tianda and the others escaped to. They ran left after exiting the alley. Yang Na, who was on the roof, replied. Left. Chun Xiang touched his chin and asked, the direction of the city gate. That's right. Wuji nodded and said indifferently. F***CK. Hearing Wuji's answer, Chun Xiang and the others immediately became anxious. Everyone, hurry up and chase after them. Don't let them escape. The map outside the city ruin was very vast. Everyone had spent a lot of effort to trap Fei Tianda and the others in the city. Once they escaped the city, it would not be easy to find an opportunity to trap them again. No rush, no rush. Wuji waved his hand and said, let them run. Aren't you afraid that they will run? Chun Xiang was surprised when he saw how calm Wuji was. He. Wuji laughed and said, didn't you notice that we are missing one person? This. Chun Xiang was stunned for a moment and quickly looked around. He then said in surprise, where's Old Cow? That's right. Wuji smiled and said, Old Cow has been waiting for them at the entrance. There's so many people. Can Old Cow stop them? Chun Xiang asked absent-mindedly. Chun Xiang naturally did not doubt Wang Yu's strength. However, killing and escaping were two completely different concepts. Fei Tianda still had over 100 people under him. Even if Wang Yu could fight against 100 people alone, could he stop them from escaping? There should only be over 100 people on the other side now, right? Wuji asked with a smile. Yes. Chun Xiang nodded. Their tanks and mages are gone, right? Gone. Chun Xiang nodded again. During the battle in the alley, just now, the main targets were the tanks and mages. Now, not only did Fei Tianda lose his tanks, but his damage output mages, control-type warlocks, and healing-type priests had also been eliminated by Quan Zhen. Chapter 1806. As a pugilist, Wang Yu basically had no natural enemies. However, the Warlock class had always been troublesome to deal with. The Warlock class's instantaneous burst damage wasn't strong, but its continuous damage from poison was known as the most disgusting class in history. It was especially true for its various control skills. Even Wang Yu didn't dare to underestimate it. After all, no matter how strong Wang Yu was, he had to bow to the system. As for the mage, priest, and tank classes, one dealt AoE damage, one healed, and one had thick skin. Wang Yu wasn't afraid in a one-on-one fight. However, a team battle wasn't as simple as having one more person. When these three classes fought as a team, the level of disgust would stack. It wouldn't be inferior to the Warlock class. During the siege in the alley, Wuji had specifically ordered his troops to target these classes. Now that the Warlock, Priest, Mage, and Tank in Fei Tianda's team had all been killed, although the remaining players' damage output wasn't low, whether it was control or harassment, they wouldn't pose much of a problem to a melee master like Wang Yu. As the saying went, only magic could defeat magic, and only Wang Yu could eliminate physical attacks. Meanwhile, after Fei Tianda's group was ambushed by Chuanjin's group, they had thoroughly experienced the Chuanjin's methods. There were many alleys in the city ruin, and people could hide in every corner of the houses. If they continued to stay here, they wouldn't have a good ending. Naturally, Fei Tianda didn't dare to allow his subordinates to remain here. Hence, Fei Tianda and his subordinates ran towards the city gates. Just as the group was about to leave the city, they discovered that Wang Yu had been waiting for them at the city gates. Wang Yu held a long staff in front of him, blocking the entrance. Fei Tianda and his subordinates felt a chill in their hearts when they saw the stalwart figure blocking the entrance. Fei Tianda and his subordinates were no strangers to Wang Yu. They had seen Wang Yu twice just now. At the same time, Wang Yu had left a deep impression on Spring River's players. This kid had appeared twice and attacked twice in total. However, in just those 2 attacks, he had claimed over 50 lives from Spring River's Warm River Guards. Spring River's Warm River Guard had never heard of such a frightening existence. When he saw Wang Yu blocking the road, Fei Tianda's emotions were extremely complicated. In front of them was Wang Yu blocking their path, and behind them was the ambush of the other members of the Quanjin sect. Right now, Fei Tianda's group was in a dilemma. There was no need to doubt Wang Yu's strength, but the guys behind him were equally terrifying. Should he force his way through Wang Yu's obstruction, or should he turn around and face the ambush of 10 Chuanjin men? This choice was simply a suicide question. However, with the principle that it was better to have one less opponent than one more opponent, Fei Tianda decided to cut off all means of retreat and pointed at Wang Yu. There's no way out. Everyone, let's go together and kill this brat. Fei Tianda's subordinates were no fools. Naturally, they understood Fei Tianda's meaning. Although Wang Yu was terrifying, he was still only one person. Although there might be some losses if there were more than 100 of them against one person, the chances of winning were still very high. If they turned back, the Quanjin sect's ambush behind them would definitely be able to kill the remaining people in one wave. As long as they weren't fools, they would know whether to turn around and die or face Wang Yu alone. Hence, upon receiving Fei Tianda's command, Spring River Guards quickly spread out into formation. The warriors lined up in a row, protecting the archers behind them, while the assassins disappeared into thin air. Attack! Following Fei Tianda's command, the warriors at the front lowered their heads and charged at Wang Yu. The archers also knocked their arrows and fired at Wang Yu. The players who were able to survive the Quanjin sect's ambush were, of course, experts among experts. Their coordination was also extremely brilliant. Unlike the other players, these players didn't aim at a single point. Instead, they scattered their attacks towards Wang Yu. Instantly, dozens of arrows rained down on Wang Yu. Upon seeing this, Wang Yu smiled slightly and retreated half a step to the city gate. Dang, 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 dang. The gate of the city ruins was only 3 to 4 meters wide. As Wang Yu took a step back, 2/3 of the arrows hit the wall behind the gate. At the same time, Wang Yu swung the long staff in his hand. Swoosh! Dozens of arrows were swept away by Wang Yu's staff. At this time, the dozens of warriors at the front of Spring River Guards also rushed in front of Wang Yu. Without waiting for Wang Yu to retreat, the air behind Wang Yu distorted. 7 or 8 assassins appeared behind Wang Yu and stabbed at Wang Yu's back with their daggers. There was a row of warriors in front of him, and a group of assassins behind him with backstab. Wang Yu was attacked from both sides, and it looked like he was going to be finished off in one wave. Wang Yu didn't panic. He placed the long staff in his hand on the ground and pushed down with his arms. His entire body flew up. Now that Wang Yu's target had disappeared, it was too late for the warrior and the assassin who had been hit by backstab to cancel their skills. Bang, 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 bang. The players from Spring River Guards directly collided into each other. Although they didn't take any damage, the impact of the collision was real. More than 20 people fell into a pile. Lightning flashed under Wang Yu's feet as he put away his long staff and descended from the sky. Boom! With a loud sound, Wang Yu landed on the ground and twisted his body to use the flaming blade. The lightning spread out along with the flames. The 20 people below the city gate were instantly killed by Wang Yu and turned into white light. Mph. Seeing that his companions were killed, Fei Tianda wasn't surprised at all. Instead, the corner of his mouth curled up and revealed a treacherous smile. Following a cold laugh, Fei Tianda loudly said, "This brat has already used up all his tricks. Everyone, take this opportunity to kill him." It had to be said that as a guild leader, Fei Tianda was very scheming. Previously, Fei Tianda and his men had fought with Wang Yu twice. Fei Tianda thought that he had figured out Wang Yu's background and knew Wang Yu like the back of his hand. In Fei Tianda's eyes, this terrifying grandmaster of combat only had 3 tricks: Thunder Stomp, Flaming Blade, and a high speed of turning and running. Therefore, Fei Tianda first let his men feint to trick Wang Yu into using his skills. Now that Wang Yu had used both Thunder Stomp and Flaming Blade, he didn't have any other attacking methods. As long as everyone attacked together, a mere grandmaster of combat would be a piece of cake. However, it was obvious that Fei Tianda didn't have a thorough understanding of Qiuanjin. From the beginning, Fei Tianda had underestimated his opponent. The reason that Qiuanjin could let Wang Yu stand guard at the city gate was definitely not because Wang Yu was the only one there. Instead, it was because compared to everyone else in Qiuanjin combined, this guy guarding the city gate was much more terrifying. Chapter 1807. Of course, Fei Tianda didn't have the chance to understand this. When Wang Yu saw Fei Tianda leading the rest of the people to charge forward, he leaped backward and somersaulted out of the city gate. Although the city gate was only 3 to 4 meters wide, it was 7 to 8 meters deep. By the time Wang Yu leaped back, Fei Tianda, Spring River Heater, and the rest of the players had already reached the city gate. Wang Yu landed on the ground and circulated his dantian. His body flashed with a golden light as he activated Dragon, Subduing Palm. At the same time, he struck out with both palms. Roar! Following a dragon's roar, waves of energy gushed out from Wang Yu's palms and turned into golden dragons that crashed into the players of Spring River Heater. Profound art of Subduing Dragon. 100 miles stun a row of golden Chinese characters lit up above Wang Yu's head. Although this 100-mile stun was powerful, its activation speed wasn't fast. It was very limited against agility classes like archers and assassins. Unless certain conditions were met, it would be extremely difficult to wipe out everyone in one move. However, Wang Yu had already predicted this terrain. Seeing the enemies pouncing at him, Wang Yu retreated while Fei Tianda and the others rushed forward. Coincidentally, everyone had reached the city gate. The city gate was long and narrow. With 100 people inside, it was naturally very crowded. Facing Wang Yu's skill, there was no way to avoid it. Roar! The golden dragon roared as it flew into the city gate. Everyone below the city gate was swallowed by the dragon. Victory! After Fei Tianda and the others were wiped out by Wang Yu, 2 huge Chinese characters appeared in the sky above the battlefield. Qiuanjin's players were teleported out of the battlefield. System notice: your guild has annihilated the enemy guild Spring River Heater Duck Prophet. Obtained 1948 points. System notice: your guild has not lost a single person in the guild battlefield. You have achieved perfect achievement. The points obtained have been doubled. Following a series of system notifications, the battle points were calculated. With the exception of Wang Yu, Qiuanjin's players all had a golden light on their bodies. Aside from the guild point rewards, the guild battlefield also rewarded a large amount of experience. The amount of experience was determined by the number of people on both sides. 11 people from Qiuanjin had killed 974 people from Spring River. This experience was naturally an astronomical number when divided equally among the people from Qiuanjin. The members of the Quanjin Guild had all leveled up after receiving the experience. Even Wang Yu, who was already at level 70, had his experience bar jump. In the end, the game still depended on one's equipment and control. To Quanjin's members, experience and levels were like floating clouds. However, the several thousand points they had earned made them incredibly happy. Just now, when he was in the Divine Demon Canyon, he had only earned a dozen or so points after working hard for half an hour. If he encountered an actor, he might not even be able to earn that much. Now, this trip to the Guild battlefield had also only lasted 30 minutes. Yet, they had obtained such a bountiful harvest. This was especially true for Mingdu, who had obtained more than half of the points by himself. At this moment, he was so happy that his teeth were about to pop out. Very beautiful, very beautiful. Mingdu started to calculate how many elemental stones he could exchange for. At this moment, Wuji said, "In the next battlefield, we have to give all the kills to Old Li or Old Cow." Really? Hearing Wuji's words, Mingdu felt excited. This was the first time Mingdu had enjoyed such treatment. Of course, Wuji explained, "We're here to farm for materials. If the points are too scattered, it'll be a waste of time. It'll be faster to gather one or two people to farm." Hearing Wuji's words, Mingdu spat out a mouthful of blood. Trembling, he said, "So, I'm that god of fortune." "Nonsense," everyone said in disdain. "Without us, how many points do you think you can farm?" But my ass." Mingdu was about to retort when Wuji interrupted him. "As long as you're obedient, the MVP will still be yours. If you dare to disobey, I won't let you farm a single point." Mingdu wanted to cry innocence again. The Chuanjin people frowned. All right, under everyone's tyranny, Mingdu could only compromise. As a veteran Chuanjin dog, Mingdu naturally understood his group of old fellows better than anyone else. They were a group of people who would do what they said, especially Wuji. If he dared to disobey him, it was very likely that he would be sent to his death at the start. New the first time, familiar the second time. With the first battle, they were much more familiar with the following guild battlefields. Chuanjin's group carried forward the essence of guerrilla warfare. They relied on the terrain and used their mounts as bait. When the enemy advanced, they retreated. When the enemy was stationed, they harassed. When the enemy was tired, they attacked. When the enemy retreated, they chased. They were like a mudslide on the battlefield. Wherever they went, there were whales. However, no one from a real big guild would waste their leveling time on battlefields. After all, although the battlefield EXP was high, it varied from person to person. Chuanjin had fewer people, so the EXP was more evenly distributed. Compared to big guilds, the EXP was still very scarce. Therefore, other than Spring River Warm Water, the other guilds that were matched with Chuanjin were small guilds with 80 to 90 people. Everyone farmed until nighttime before they finally obtained the materials that Yin Lao Air needed. When Wang Yu and the others returned to Yu Huicheng, Evildoers Run Wild also brought the materials to Chuanjin's base. Everyone excitedly followed Wang Yu into the forge. This was a genuine original celestial equipment. Although its attributes weren't much better than the celestial equipment forged from a recipe, it was still very significant. They could witness the celestial equipment's glory. Normal players might not even have the chance to see it, even once they closed the game server. The people from Chuanjin were lively people. Of course, they wouldn't miss it. Even Mu Zixian, Li Shui, and the others put down their business and returned to the guild base when they heard that Wang Yu wanted to recast the celestial equipment. Money could be earned at any time. This thing was rarer than a meteor. Compared to forging, recasting equipment didn't have much technical content. This was because 90% of the process of forging equipment was making equipment parts, and the remaining 10% was assembling the equipment. On the other hand, recasting equipment was done according to the system's requirements. All players needed to do was throw the materials in according to the system's requirements. They had the original celestial equipment template, so there was no need for players to reforge it. The difficulty of recasting was in the collection of materials and finding a designated blacksmith. Yin Lao Air could be considered extremely lucky. First, he had Wang Yu, a friend who was proficient in the Titan race's forging. Then, he had the help of his old friends from Chuanjin. In just one day, everyone had helped Yin Lao Air overcome all sorts of difficulties. Arriving at the control panel, Wang Yu opened the recasting interface. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and the furnace on the control panel burst into flames. Wang Yu followed the system's instructions and threw the materials in his bag into the furnace. As the materials in Wang Yu's bag decreased, the furnace's completion rate increased. Finally, when Wang Yu threw the last material into the furnace, the completion rate reached 100%. Chapter 1808. Seeing that the progress bar was full, Wang Yu took out the Sky Demon Armor mold and placed it on the control panel. A silhouette of the Sky Demon Armor appeared on the control panel, and below the silhouette was a recast option. Wang Yu took a deep breath and clicked recast. After another long loading bar, the materials in the furnace slowly poured into the mold. The palm-sized Sky Demon Armor gradually grew larger, and its color also gained a luster. As the materials in the furnace decreased, the color of the Sky Demon Armor became more and more beautiful. With a flash of black light, the palm-sized Sky Demon Armor mold turned into a set of armor in Wang Yu's hand. System notice: recast successful. You have obtained the Divine Armament, Sky Demon Armor. System notice: player Iron Ox has recast the Divine Armament. Reputation plus 1,000. Obtained Precious Gem, Black Crystal *1. Following the system notification, a black crystal appeared in Wang Yu's bag. Seeing the black crystal in his bag, Wang Yu grew excited. As the saying goes, one can wear out iron shoes in fruitless search, only to find it by chance. The black crystal was something that could only be found by chance. Wang Yu no longer held any hope for it. He never imagined that after recasting the Sky Demon Armor, he would be rewarded with a black crystal. This was the joy of recasting equipment. Not only could the players who received the quest obtain divine equipment, but the blacksmiths who helped in the recasting would also receive random rewards. Even the Quan Jun sect members who were watching from the sidelines were notified by the system that they had gained some insights into forging after witnessing the rebirth of divine equipment. Naturally, these forging insights were useless to Chuanjin, who did not play the blacksmith profession. However, if a blacksmith had these insights, their chances of forging a top-tier item within a certain period of time would greatly increase. After his excitement, Wang Yu handed the Sky Demon Armor to Yin Lao Air. The people of Quan Jun immediately surrounded them and stared at Yin Lao, their eyes filled with curiosity. This was a divine armament. Chuanjin probably wouldn't believe it if they said they weren't curious about its attributes. Chuanjin had contributed greatly to the reforging of the Sky Demon Armor. Naturally, Yin Lao Air would not be so stingy as to not even let the others see its attributes. Hence, he casually opened the attribute panel. Sky Demon Armor, Legendary, Physical Defense, 700-700 Magic Resistance, 700-700 plus 70 Strength plus 70 Physique plus 70 Dexterity. Sky Demon's Greed. Passive skill. Absorbs 10% of the damage taken and converts it into damage. Sky Demon's Rage. Passive skill. Player will gain rage points for every critical hit. Each point of rage will increase player's critical hit rate by 1%. Maximum stacking limit is 200%. Sky Demon's Bloodlust. Passive skill. For every 1% of HP lost, player's attack and defense will increase by 5%. Sky Demon's Fear. Passive skill. When the player's HP is reduced to 30%, the player will enter the Sky Demon's possession state. Under the Sky Demon's possession state, the player's body will grow by 300%, and their attack power and defense will increase by 300%. At the same time, the player will fear nearby targets for a short time and reflect 30% of the damage taken. Sky Demon's Pride. Active skill. Taunts all enemy targets within a 200-meter radius. For 10 seconds, the target taunted will have their attack power reduced by 80% and their movement speed reduced by 60%. Sky Demon's Massacre. Active skill. Consumes all HP to obtain the Undying State and instantly gains 100 rage points. The more HP consumed, the longer the Undying State will last. Item description. This is an armor that has been passed down since ancient times. It is said that it was made from the skeletons of enemies killed by the Sky Demon Lord while he was training in another world. After thousands of years of forging, this Sky Demon armor was finally forged. The Sky Demon armor has gone through 6 generations of Sky Demon Lords and absorbed the abilities they were most proud of. It is a magic weapon that causes people to tremble in fear. Level requirement, 70 class requirement. Warrior Sky Demon's Disintegration, legendary skill. Consumes 50% of HP to deal a fatal blow to the target. Increases movement speed by 500% for 10 seconds. When killed in the Sky Demon's disintegration state, the user can resurrect on the spot and recover 50% of HP. Cooldown time, 180 seconds. During the cooldown time, all stats will be reduced by 20%. Damn! When everyone saw the attributes of Lao Air's Sky Demon armor, a wave of envy washed over them. Of course, most of them felt that they had not sacrificed themselves for nothing. Although they had spent so many materials and put in so much effort, this Sky Demon armor was absolutely worth it. Players' equipment was mainly divided into 2 attributes, attack and defense. The reason why armor was called a large piece was because, like weapons, armor was the most important part of a player's equipment's defense. In terms of defense, this Sky Demon armor was practically flawless. Not only did it have a special effect that increased defense, but it also had the effect of reflecting attacks. The Sky Demon's Massacre skill gave the player an undying body and even a resurrection skill. In addition, with the active skill of Sky Demon's Pride, even if Lao Air was in a state of low HP, he could still stand firmly at the front of the team. Being able to pull and stand firmly were essential qualities for a good tank. With these attributes, the Sky Demon armor was the perfect piece of equipment for tanks. In addition, the Sky Demon armor also increased critical hit, attack power, and movement speed by 5 times, making up for the weakness of a tank class in terms of damage output. Whether it was a battle of weapons or a battle of defense, wearing this armor would instantly transform a player into a killing machine that combined both offense and defense. Although Chuanjin's team possessed a godly weapon before the Sky Demon armor, they were no different from toys. Aside from the staff in Mingdu's hands and the bow on Wang Yu's back, no other piece of equipment could compare to the Sky Demon armor. One had to admit that comparisons were odious. This was especially true for a shield warrior like Lao Air. A good piece of armor was even more valuable than a weapon. Come on, let's try out the equipment. Bao San was also a warrior, so he was naturally excited when he saw this exquisite piece of equipment. He dragged Lao Air with him to try it out. Try my ass. I can't even wear it yet. Lao Air grinned and asked the crowd, "Who's going to give me some divine wood so I can lower my level?" Scram. Everyone gave Lao Air the middle finger in unison. Damn it, he's still not satisfied after obtaining such an amazing godly weapon. He even wants divine wood. He really doesn't care about the feelings of others at all. Hee hee. Looking at the noisy crowd around him, Wang Yu smiled slightly. He took off his shoes and threw them on the control panel. Then, he took out the black crystal from his backpack. As the saying goes, helping others is also helping oneself. Wang Yu had been busy for the whole day for Lao Air. For Wang Yu, this black crystal was an unexpected harvest. P.S. The cold medicine I bought seems to have sleeping ingredients. I'm dozing off while writing. This is the last chapter for today. I'm going to sleep. Chapter 1809. Wang Yu placed the war boots of dusk and the black crystal on the control panel. A draw option appeared on the panel. System notification. Will you draw stats? Yes. Wang Yu casually clicked the confirm button. The stats drawn from the black crystal were random. After the draw, the equipment would disappear. It would be fine if he got Dusk Leap on his first try, but if he didn't, not only would the black crystal be wasted, even the equipment would be wasted. From this point of view, it could be seen that high-grade equipment also had its shortcomings. Because of this, some single-stat bronze equipment were extremely expensive on the market. These types of equipment were called single-stat equipment. Fortunately, Wang Yu's War Boots of Dusk was something he had equipped when he first started playing. Its level and grade were not high. It was just a piece of silver-grade equipment with only 2 stats. Although Wang Yu's face was not white, it was not especially black either. A 50% chance was not low for him. As Wang Yu clicked Confirm, the War Boots of Dusk on the control panel turned into a black light and was absorbed by the black crystal. System notification, stat draw complete. You have obtained the tool Black Crystal. Black Crystal, rare material, can be used to create equipment. Stats, Dusk Leap active skill. Instantly teleports to a specific location within 5 meters. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Who? Looking at the black crystal in his hand, Wang Yu wiped his sweat in excitement. He then placed the martial scholar's footprint and the black crystal on the control panel. System notification. Will you combine? Combine. Wang Yu clicked Confirm. The black crystal and the martial scholar's footprint floated in the air and then merged together. After 10 seconds, the system notification. Combination successful. You have obtained legendary equipment, martial scholar's footprint. The stats of the new equipment didn't change much compared to the previous one. I was too lazy to copy and paste the numbers. Everyone can scroll forward. Other than the main stats being increased to legendary rank, there was also a new legendary skill at the bottom of the equipment. 9 Cloud Dragon appearances. Cloud Dragon's 9 appearances. Instantly teleports to a designated location within 5 meters and deals damage to enemy units within 100 meters. It can be used 9 times in a row within a certain period of time. Every additional teleportation will double the cost, but will also deal additional damage. First teleportation consumes 10% MP cooldown, 60 seconds. This skill looked very awesome. Just the thought of being able to teleport 9 times in a row was terrifying, not to mention the additional damage. But thinking about it carefully, it was rather nonsensical. 1 release would consume 10% MP. 2 releases would consume 10% plus 20% equals 30%, and 3 releases would consume 70%. Although it was called the Cloud Dragon's 9 appearances, it could only flash 3 times at most. Without unlimited MP, this skill was basically an incomplete version. Of course, being able to blink 3 times was already very overpowered. Compared to his previous ability of only being able to blink once, it was much stronger. However, when he looked at the skill description and thought about the casting requirements, Wang Yu felt that the system was insulting his intelligence. In the end, it was still level 70 equipment. After putting on the martial scholar's footprints, Wang Yu felt as light as a swallow. At this time, the system sent another notification. You have gathered the martial god set 4/4. The set's hidden attribute has been activated. When martial scholar's footprints, shoes movement speed increased by 60%, forest martial scholar's glory. Ring attack speed increased by 60%, fire martial scholar's sigh. Weapon attack power increased by 60%, mountain martial scholar's protection. Clothing defense power increased by 60%. Martial god set? Wang Yu looked at the 4 pieces of equipment on his body in surprise. At this time, the set's attributes had already been lit up. However, the attributes of the 4 pieces of equipment were uneven. The martial scholar's footprints that he had obtained was currently the highest grade. The weapon was slightly better. After several upgrades, it was already epic grade. The level requirement was still able to keep up with Wang Yu's current level. The clothes were more miserable. They were level 20 dark gold grade equipment. As for the ring, Wang Yu did not care about it at all. Until now, it was still a broken level 10 equipment. It was not that Wang Yu did not want to care about it, but the upgrade quests for divine equipment were different from ordinary equipment. One could tell just by looking at Ian Lauer's Sky Fiend armor. Only the rich players of the Quanjin sect could afford it. Unless ordinary people could directly get their hands on a finished product, nurturing a divine weapon would cause them to go bankrupt. Moreover, Wang Yu had nurtured so many of them. Moreover, materials weren't the only things required to nurture a piece of artifact equipment. Compared to the complicated quests, the exorbitant prices of materials that could be bought with money were a trivial matter. Sigh. Thinking of this, Wang Yu could not help but sigh. Why do I have so many divine equipment? It's so annoying. Uffed, hearing Wang Yu's sigh, the Chuanjin people could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Damn it. Why did this dog's words need a beating? They really want to beat him up. Old cow, you're too wasteful. Others don't even have a single divine equipment, and you think they have too many? Wuji could not help but roll his eyes. When I first met you, you weren't so arrogant. Arrogant my ass. Wang Yu gloomily showed off the equipment on his body. Look at it yourselves. How much effort would it take to upgrade my current equipment? This, seeing the broken and half-baked divine equipment on Wang Yu, the Chuanjin people immediately fell silent. Now, everyone understood why Wang Yu said that. Broken divine equipment. Who knew how disgusting this thing was? Even if it was called a divine equipment, other than special effects, its main attributes were the same as trash. Even if it was called trash, it still carried the title of divine equipment. It was truly tasteless, but it was a pity to throw it away. However, what shocked everyone even more was the fact that Wang Yu, such an abnormal fellow, was actually equipped with such a pile of low-level trash. What kind of logic was this? If he was really given a suitable set of godly equipment, wouldn't he be able to soar into the sky like a dragon? Forget it. After being stunned for a moment, Wuji waved his hand and said, "Old cow, it doesn't matter if he has equipment or not. Let's look at ourselves. Next month is the S-Rank League. Our main goal this month is to improve our equipment." S-Rank League. Hearing Wuji's words, the Chuanjin people could not help but be in an uproar. The S-Rank Pro League was different from the previous Pro League. As the highest level of competition in the world, the teams in the S-Rank Pro League were the best of the best. Any one of them was a world-class expert. The number of times that 9 provinces had won the S-Rank League could be counted on one hand. Their skill level was very high. Although it was a brand new mode, an expert was still an expert, whether it was his reaction speed or his control over his character skills. //4_4613/ Chapter 1810. Although Chuanjin wasn't afraid of anything, they never took a loss when the odds were against them. It was clear that they knew their limits. These guys viewed themselves as bandits through and through. Usually, these guys would steal bosses and steal equipment from other players, which seemed like very despicable things. When they played the game, their main goal was to be happy. They were content with a little bit of wealth. They never had any ambitions to conquer the world, not to mention playing in a professional competition, not to mention going to the international arena to compete with the experts that he could only see on the screen in the past. When they heard Wuji mention this, they couldn't help but feel nervous. It couldn't be helped. This group of people wanted to live the lives of ordinary people who killed and looted, who knew that there was no free will in the game. Even these people didn't think that they would have such a day. Can we not go? To place one's pride was the first to speak up, breaking the silence. The burden of an S-rank team wasn't as simple as winning or losing. They also carried the glory of the country. Anything that involved the face of the country was no small matter. To place one's pride was just a kid. To place one's pride was subconsciously timid when he was suddenly entrusted with such a heavy responsibility. I don't think so. Wang Yu rubbed his chin. I heard that the champions and runners-up of the professional competition are qualified teams. If we don't go, it's the same as forfeiting. I know you guys aren't afraid of losing face, but if we lose without a fight, it won't just be our Chuanjin's face. The S-Rank League was an international competition. The teams represented the country. If Chuanjin lost without a fight, it would be the same as the country losing without a fight. The impact of this matter wasn't big, but it definitely wasn't small. You could be knocked down, but you couldn't be defeated. If you didn't even have the courage to fight, then you would really lose face. For those shameless teams, they would at most bear infamy. It wouldn't hurt them or break the law, but for any normal countryman who would be willing to be ridiculed. It was true that the Chuanjin fellows were thick-skinned and shameless, but they were still very clear about what was right and what was wrong. That's right. Mingdu also giggled and said, Dao Xue is still waiting to win the championship and become his son-in-law. Son-in-law my ass. Don't mention this matter. When Mingjian Daoshua heard this, his face darkened, and he rolled his eyes at Mingdu. Mingjian Daoshua was also a person who cared about his reputation. Becoming a son-in-law was just Miss Meng's one-sided wish. Normal people had their own hands and feet, so who would be willing to suck up to someone else? When it came to marriage, the most important thing was that the two families were of equal social status. For Wang Yu's situation, it was still acceptable. After all, in most cases, the man would not look down on the woman's family. However, for Ming Jian Daoshua's situation, it was completely different. The so-called, if you become the champion, you'll be given a position and whatnot was perhaps a serious one. However, for Ming Jian Daoshua, this was just a way to give himself a way out. So what if they really won the championship? This position was given to him out of charity. They were not on equal terms in the first place, so how could he let others think highly of him? As the saying went, a man of integrity does not drink water from a stolen spring, and a man of integrity does not accept food given in handouts. The people from Xuanzhen could still joke about this matter, but Ming Jian Daoshua himself would definitely not take it seriously. Seeing Ming Jian Daoshua's reaction, the people from Xuanzhen were naturally a loss. However, others might not understand what Ming Jian Daoshua was thinking, but Wuji saw through it in an instant. He grinned and said, Daoshua is really arrogant. He thinks that he doesn't have enough prestige. Prestige? Mingdu asked in bewilderment. How much prestige is considered prestige? Let's put it this way. Wuji gave an example and said, if you were the richest man in the world and a hooligan who plays games wanted to marry your daughter, what would you do? Why? Mingdu clenched his fists, his face filled with displeasure. See that? Wuji smiled and said, that's exactly what Daoshua thinks. It's just that he's the one who is afraid of being looked down upon by others. At this moment, the others also understood what Wuji meant. Wasn't that so? No matter how well one played the game, no matter how much money one earned in the game, one was still just a player. In the eyes of those people from the upper class, it was still not a status that could match up to them. Then what should we do? Don't we want to marry a beautiful wife? Hearing Wuji say this, Mingdu was even more anxious than Ming Jian Daoshua. These two fellows in Xuanzhen were usually the closest to each other, and their relationship was also the best. Mingdu was still hoping that Ming Jian Daoshua would bring him to make a fortune after marrying into his family. We just need to raise our reputation, Wuji said faintly. How do we bring this up? Everyone was once again dumbfounded. At the end of the day, everyone was a commoner. Even a little rich second generation like to place one's pride could only be considered as a middle-class person in the eyes of those tycoons. In their eyes, there was no concept of prestige at all. Wang Yu's family was big, but their martial arts family's thinking was more conservative and kept a low profile. Although they had strength, they were disdainful of showing their faces in public. If it was in the martial arts circle, the Wang family would definitely flock to it like a flock of ducks, but in the financial circle, they were not well known. Find a rich person who is on par with Miss Ming's family as a relative. Wuji said, what else can we do? Don't tell me we need to reincarnate again? A rich person who is on par with Miss Ming's family as a relative? Hearing that, Mingdu curled his lips and said, if I had such a relative, why would I be a street rat in the game with you scum? Oldie is right. Oldie is absolutely right. Everyone nodded in unison. The game was the same as reality, but the circles were different. It was very difficult to play together. Just look at evildoers run wild. It was fine for him to chat during competitions, but if he really had to go through the trouble of grinding dungeons and snatching bosses, he would rather find a place to sleep. Wuji, don't you always brag that the people you come into contact with are all super awesome people? Help Daoshua find a relative. Wuji laughed and said, what nonsense. The people I know are all very busy. How would they have the time to care about such a small matter? How pitiful. Everyone patted famous sword Daoshua's shoulder and comforted him. Daoshua, your qualifications aren't bad either. Just find another one. Scram, scram, scram. Famous sword Daoshua angrily pointed his middle finger at everyone. Landlord, are you there? Just as everyone from Chuanjin was fooling around, Wang Yu's message window suddenly lit up. Wang Yu opened the message and was instantly stunned. There was nothing special about the message, but the sender was a good friend of Wang Yu's who hadn't been online for a long time, Ma Lanhua. Seeing this ID, Wang Yu couldn't recall who it was. However, when he saw the name, Wang Yu suddenly realized that this Ma Lanhua was Ma Li, who had silently left a few months ago. After all, they lived under the same roof. It was impossible for them to not have any feelings. Seeing that Ma Li, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly came online, Wang Yu couldn't help but feel excited. He quickly replied, "Little girl, where did you go? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."